They give him so much respect. Jensen going in. Oh, he actually gets in Medios with the smite down on Elder.
Smite picked up there by Smite. Scare didn't even need the smite. And the fight is on. Nearly a run on the top. Oh my gosh, just getting takes one down. Plus the shot. Dark is amazing.
Welcome, everyone, to Monday Night League. I'm Gabriella La Tigris W. Allen, happy to be bringing you another edition of League Action to kick off your week alongside Neil Prawley Hamad and Mark Zimmerman. How y'all fellas doing?
Great. We were hanging out in the green room. He was watching backseat piloting my Legends of Runeterra deck.
All my moves would have worked, and you just wouldn't listen.
It was a nightmare. I'm ready to start the show.
Well, did he give you enough advice so that you can maybe skip a few ranks?
Ooh, like kind of anti-advice, right? Like every time he says something, I'm like, yeah, I'll do not that. So it's kind of advice, yeah.
Well, we're going to leave Legends of Runeterra ranking to the side and instead take a look at the standings soon enough, because before we jump into the matches, we have to review how everything has been going down. Now, Cloud9 ended their week undefeated at 4-0, and we are going to be seeing whether Dignitas can join them after their match today against FlyQuest. Then it's a triplet of teams at 2-2 with TSM just above Counter Logic Gaming at the bottom of the standings. And I think there's a lot of fans for both of those organizations that might be a tad disappointed to see them there at the bottom.
It's a pretty whack standings just to look at. Where Team Liquid's down here, you got Dignitas and FlyQuest up near the top. Like the whole thing just looks backwards to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into this split with those assumptions as how this would be the first 2 weeks, like everyone would think you're crazy. Especially like, yeah, Team Liquid still not getting Broxa, and then TSM CLG being at the bottom after like, I would say positive roster swaps. Pretty weird.
Yeah.
In the beginning weeks, we kind of think of it as, oh, there are a lot of variables going into it. So at what point do you think we can finally look at the standings and say, these are a bit more reflective of what we can expect for the rest of the split?
Well, I'm gonna say like right now we're seeing a lot of teams like skill floor. So like how good they would be if they were matched up in solo queue together. So we haven't really gotten to see like the coach influence yet, like the systematic approach the team will take, and like how well they'll deal with adaptable metas that come out. Because the big thing about League is we have patches every 2 weeks. So these teams are good now, but what happens when you take away their best champions? What happens when you just mix it up on them?
Yeah, there's definitely some teams that naturally get along better. Like I think C9 is a great example of, they've been practicing a little bit, but they do seem to all get along naturally. Whereas a team, I don't know, like CLG is one that is not naturally working well together. That doesn't mean they're going to stay down there. And I think the point about everyone gets that soft reset on a new patch and seeing who can, keep adapting to those is really important.
Well, one of the great things about Monday Night League is by the time we get here, we have had matches throughout the weekend so far. So TSM, they ended up getting a very crucial win over Evil Geniuses yesterday, due in large part to Broken Blade's play on League's newest champion, Set. So with Set, what'd it do, guys?
It do damage.
It did lots of damage and punches.
It punches. I thought Broken Blade probably had the best one I had seen, most importantly because of his ability to land massive haymakers. That's his W, that's the big trapezoid you see come out. He was getting the true damage all the time. This was a really smart usage of his ult to pull the Kindred out, flash follow with the W. He did that time and time again, and a lot of people had good sets as well, but I thought that he did the best job actually landing the true damage narrow portion of that in pretty messy team fights, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overhype him because it was just one performance, but...
Come on! Why didn't you like Broken Blade?
There was some flanks, and I remember talking about Set being a champion that the big counter is you just kind of like, walk away from him. So I was really happy the way Broken Blade played it. He was really in good spots, and he kind of had like this like Mord-esque playstyle where he like takes one guy out of the fight, and you saw that against Evil Geniuses where he's just ulting the Kindred out of the fight and stuff, and I think you can do that by engaging the fight or literally taking a carry and just throwing him away.
And Broken Blade wasn't the only one to bring Set out, even getting banned sometimes, and someday ended up bringing him onto the Rift as well. So if you're looking at maybe some of the other specific characteristics, for instance, the matchups themselves playing into it.
Right, and this is more the defensive power of Set. You see that excellent time Haymaker. Not only does he give that big damage that I've been hyping up, but that massive shield gives time for his huge regen to play in. He can be a champion that's tough to dive if the Set is playing well, and he punished CLG there. So it's not just about the damage and the body slamming people. He does survive a lot of matchups.
I mean, I think what we just saw was somebody playing it really correctly, and I think a lot of teams are going to start looking at Set and being like, we're not gonna dive that anymore because you could see how they were grouped and he just spread apart both the teammates and then could like single one out and then bring the other one in later. So yeah, Set's really deceptive to kill and he has a lot of like, the one gap closer feels like a lot.
Well, with all of those specifics aside, what is your basic verdict on Set then in his first appearance in LCS?
Two thumbs up.
Pretty much pick ban.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. There's some situations where you might not first pick it and you might want to see a little bit, but most of the time, I think if you're a good Set player and your team does a good job setting you up. Damn it, I didn't want to do that. But if your team plays around it well, you can usually have a good performance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see if they do the Kale counter pick because I thought it worked well.
It was smart.
I know like that dive someday outplayed it really crazily, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be answers to Set that people will try out, and I don't want people to be like just banning him outright. Like I want to see it picked early, then counter-picked, and like see how that's played out. Because when CLG did it, they didn't play around it very well, so it kind of got back in the game. But the Kale looked like he got a free lane. It's a strong champion, so I do want to see Set like I want to see people try to beat it and not just ban it.
Well, and champions within League of Legends have a very organic flow to them just because of the nature of balancing. So if you're looking at the kit specifically for Set, do you think that it's enough for him to survive potential nerfs in the future?
I think
Little ones.
I think he can take a decent-sized hit on his W right now. I think it's pretty strong. The fact that how much of grit you can store. You saw some days health bar, and that was before he got health items. That starts scaling up. He becomes very hard to burst down. He has a lot of sustain in this kit. The W's damage is also pretty insane. I do see a world where you can pull some of that power off the W, and he'll still be fine because of the other things in this kit. Feel relatively well-tuned. The W does feel strong enough that that's going to get hit a little bit. Maybe it's the cooldown too, because max rank it's like 3.6 seconds if you have 40% CDR, which you should hit with your build. That's also super low, and so there's a lot of different
shield.
Yeah, there's a lot of levers they can tune there.
I mean, honestly, I think if they nerf him like a decent chunk, like Mark's saying, I think it might push him out because again, he is a ball of stats that walks towards you, and like I said, the counterplay is running the other way. And this is a game that has so much CC built into it. You normally don't pick team comps that are like fragile, that don't have enough lockdown. So if his stats aren't strong enough to withhold the damage, I think he's gonna fall off because you just walk away from him and then you can't catch anyone.
Well, all I know is watching Set, he makes me want to work on the jabs or maybe the dabs, I don't know. But we'll have to see if he gets broken out in our matches today because Dignitas are going to try to match Cloud9 at 4-0 as they face off against FlyQuest. And with Broken Blade and TSM trying to get the better of CLG to close out the week, hopping on over to twitch.tv/BudLight after the show where myself, Dash, and Riv will be kicking back with Power of Evil and Wild Turtle to wrap up the week. So now, normally there are a lot of pomp and history around TSM versus CLG, but given the, let's say, rocky starts of both of these teams so far, it's really hard to put them in that same level of hype. Almost has a different vibe overall.
Rocky is being very generous. That's very nice of you to say.
Yeah, I mean, you could say bottom of the barrel scrap fest, which is not what you normally think of with TSM. They did pick up their first win. If they pick up another one today, they are at a 2-0 week and
nice.
Even, so it does feel a lot better. But it's hard not to feel like this team does have some small miscommunication errors. It's hard to know if it's just miscommunication or not seeing this game the same way. But either way, they have the longest average game time in the league by 6 minutes. They're the lowest combined kills or deaths per minute. Like, that is not a team that's gelling, you know? That's a team like 6 minutes longer than the 9th place team. It's insane, and I think that's why I still have a little bit of hope for them as well, is that they will get better. That is not how I see TSM being all year long.
It has to be better from here because, a lot of the issues, I talked about like a solo queue team coming together. This is a solo queue team that you don't want to come together, but hopefully over time, this is something that's like built up, right? They're like losing because of communication or indecisiveness. Those are things that are like, grows over time. So I'm not super worried. I'm a little worried.
Well, sometimes you have to think about the strengths and weaknesses of each individual team, but also how they pair against one another. And if you look at a team like Counterlogic Gaming, it seems like they're doing so many different things in a very uncoordinated way.
Yeah, I think a big difference between TSM and CLG is CLG's, they are making plays. There are fights happening. There are flanks happening, but
misposition, flank, where's the line?
So there's things happening and they just don't fit in together. So I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. I do like that they're trying things, and I just want it to get better so we can see it like faster, more aggressive league.
Yeah, it's also weird because it came from that trade, where you have Smoothie coming in there, like he's going to be the great shot caller for our team. Biofrost going over to TSM, so you have that swap. And both teams like to make it sound like they came out the better for it, but it doesn't actually look like it's improved either team yet. But I personally feel like, from what I've seen out of Smoothie, it does look like he's struggling a little bit more in the CLG environment.
Well, and speaking of that, where each team kind of talks about it in the way of, oh, we came out of this better, looking back to kind of what a lot of people that went over to the CLG facility during the offseason, they were noting, I was really convinced by how they were describing their choices. They really made me side with them. So is there something just disconnecting between that theory that we hear so heavily with CLG behind these decisions and the execution on the Rift?
I mean, I think especially from the organization, like a coach coming from that perspective, like you got to think of like what positives the team has. And I think with Smoothie being this like really loud shot caller, like that's something you kind of need to lean into. You don't want to pick up Smoothie and be like, hey, you got to talk a little bit less. Like you want to pick him up, be like, all right, you're in charge of this. You need to start doing this. So I understand where they're coming from. I do think it's going to be a big adjustment time. I think maybe we're looking at week 3 to fully come out.
I would say so, but it's also really important that they pick up a win today, just because you have this long history that we're talking about. Yeah, it's not at the top of the table like we're used to seeing, but you will feel a lot better if you push TSM down. Like, you want to be better than them. You might not be the best team in the league right now. It's a good start into week 3 if you can knock TSM out from getting back to 500 and make those fans feel like you do.
For the TSM and the CLG fans out there, I feel like none of them have forgotten how they have felt every single time these teams face off. But we are going to have to see if Smoothie and CLG can reverse people's tone with Game 2. But until then, we're going to take a break. Monday Night League returns right after this.
Freedom!
Welcome back to Monday Night League, where we're gearing up for game number 1. Fellas, you stoked?
Yes, I'm ready for week 2 of Monday Night League.
I'm ready for a slapping. I think I know.
There's gonna be a slapping?
There's going to be a slapping.
Well, before we talk about more slapping, we do want to get ahead of our 2 matches and talk about the few front runners we have for Player of the Week, because want to get y'all's input of who's going to be the new fancy MasterCard statue over there. First to talk about, we have Licorice.
Licorice, not bad choice. I think, oh, I thought you were disagreeing.
No, I was nodding
okay.
along.
Okay.
You're 100% right.
Yeah,
That was
he's
very
been
neutral.
playing really well over these last 2 weeks, and I think fulfilling the top lane role like better than anyone in the league right now, I think is probably the best top lane right now.
Yeah, I thought his Camille looked really good. He was flying in last game, starting fights for his team, being a frontliner, and also making a lot of plays. That's exactly what you want out of your top laner right now. There are a fair amount of carries up there, and he's one of the best carry players in the league. So absolutely stunning.
Absolutely stunning.
What were you about
and
to say?
I'm surprised that there's not as many like carry players with success so far in the league.
Right.
I mean, I know Viper has played Riven, that's his like thing, but to play Camille and like pop off like that, I was like, all right, it's not just Ornn Aatrox all the time.
Interesting to see him have to make this switch very quickly from being a rookie not that long ago to now a veteran on the team. And there are others on the team that are performing well. We got to give a shout out to Sven, still unkilled here within the LCS.
Off the talent suppression machine, now he's deathless. Best KDA in the league, hasn't died yet, so we don't even know what it is.
Oh, is that what TSM stands for?
Yeah.
Oh,
you didn't know?
I see.
He's been absolutely killing it and looking like probably the best offseason move so far.
Yeah, I think Senna has been kind of a goofy AD carry champion. I don't think many North American AD carriers are playing it superbly. I think Sven's kind of an exception to that, where he's playing it really well. However, just like Licorice, I think C9 has had a pretty easy schedule so far. So I think next week is going to be the real test. Like, are these players like the real deal, or do they just have an easy schedule?
A team that has not had an easy schedule, Dignitas, looking at their ADC with Johnson. There's so much pressure that comes with being a rookie, but he seems to have shelved it all.
Yeah, Afro had great things to say about him, and we were all kind of waiting for the double lift matchup. They did swap out of it a couple of times, so it wasn't just straight laning, but that's how the meta is right now, so he shouldn't be penalized for that. And then out of laning phase, he had a number of great engages. He was able to get a kill on the double lift by landing his ultimate as a Felio, so like he had a great opening week, and now that he's played against what has historically been the best marksman in the league, we'll see if Sven starts grabbing that title. But he's basically looked as good as you can possibly look as a rookie.
Yeah, I would say the, like, how does he match up against double lift? Oh, it swapped. Like, yeah, it doesn't really matter that much because you could see later in that game he's actually making picks on double lift. So it wasn't really about, you know, like, oh, this, like, intimidation factor that I think a lot of rookies go through. So the swapping is just, I'm glad he was smart enough to be a part of that and not be like, nah, let me just 1v1 him.
I gotta stand up and show.
Yeah, I gotta stand up and show people. Like, he's like, nah, I'm gonna beat him this way. So I really appreciate that. And he has been standing out, especially as like a rookie NA. We haven't seen that many rookie NA 80 carries be that well in this last year or so. So I do like that a lot.
Well, and out of those 3, taking Licorice out of the equation temporarily, because we have 2 marksmen that we're talking about right now, probably are you leaning more towards one or the other if you had to isolate it down to those 2?
This is your chance to sway the votes.
I'm gonna ruin everything.
You get
I'm going to put it on Sven. I know I said he has an easier like first 2 weeks of play, but I think his play has been more impressive, and I think it's been really important that he's been playing that way because the AD carry role, I know it's not like this big playmaker role, but your team has to set you up, and then you have to be there for your team and not be getting caught. So being in the right position, being deathless as an AD carry, it's like pretty impactful. And I think, especially coming off his last year with TSM, that didn't look spectacular. I like really appreciate his kind of like coming back to form.
This has to be the best feeling start he could possibly have after that.
Oh, for sure.
Well, for anyone in the audience that is feeling very decisive in who you think should be taking away this type of win, it's not too late to let us know because you can go ahead and vote for MasterCard's Player of the Week. Tweet who you think is the best performer in week number 2 at MasterCard Nexus. I know that there are a lot of players that have been performing time and time again here in the LCS, but only one can have a fancy figurine. But ahead of our FlyQuest versus Dignitas, Huni surprisingly had nothing but respect for FlyQuest top laner.
I respect that Viper actually can pull out the Riven any single time and then go for like trusting himself and go for late game. And of course his fingers like really good at Riven. So I gotta respect it. I can respect it. And as soon as I came LA, it has a 60 ping. I had to quit Riven and I can't play Riven anymore. Honestly, that's honest. That's honest answer. Super respect. I can't disrespect his Riven dude. Like he's insane.
So one thing, if you're looking at the way Hooney was just talking specifically about the Riven play, he's noted in a couple interviews that he doesn't feel like he can play Riven anymore. How much of that do you think maybe he's just trying to shelve it a little bit against his opponent?
I feel like Hooney's usually pretty honest.
Yeah.
So if he's like, I can't play Riven on this ping, he's being serious. So I don't think this is a mind game to set up the Riven pick 3 weeks from now.
No, this is no way a mind game, and it's just like if you play with such low ping, like he has been in Korea, and then you come over to 60, it is a big change, especially for someone where you need like animation cancels and all this kind of skill buffering. So I understand it, but I also think he's saying like I respect Viper, but I know if like we spoke to Hooney right now, he'd be like, I'm gonna smash him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like insert that Bane quote about I was raised in the ping for Viper. That's why he can still play Riven.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, aside from Dignitas, game number 1 does have FlyQuest facing off against them. And thankfully, we've got a pretty decent barometer on how these teams stack up because they both faced off against Team Liquid to kick off this week.
It was very different games, though. Team Liquid versus Dignitas, very close, back and forth. Had no idea who was going to win until the last minute as they traded kills, traded Nexus pushes back and forth.
Yeah, and this is actually the game where I was starting to get more impressed with Johnson. Here he catches double lift. This is one of the ones where the game was really slow, and this is the kind of play that's really important to break open a slow game into like the fast pace that Dignitas wants to play.
Yeah, and I think you got to see Team Liquid, yes, they're not at their peak without Broxa there, but at the very least, you beat them in the late game, and that's what's impressive to me because that's where a lot of Team Liquid wins came last split, the fact that they work well as a team. The fact that they had that good engage right there after they had gotten picked off themselves at the mid lane inhibitor turret, it shows that they also have some resiliency as a unit and that people are not freaking out when they start falling behind.
Yeah, that top engage that we just saw, I know a lot of people are gonna just be like, oh, you know, it's whatever, Thresh, flash, hook.
Yeah.
But that was a really important timing because that was when 2 inhibs were down. So if that fight did not happen, then that game might have been TL. So really kudos to Dignitas for pulling the trigger really quickly because that window was getting smaller and smaller by the minute.
And with communication being such a big talking point for a lot of these teams, really getting to see how they are in form against these more longer standing rosters with some changes really makes a difference. But if we're looking specifically at FlyQuest, while they didn't have some great aspects to them in this match.
This is the tale of 2 Team Liquids. This was a slaughter, and it kind of came down from that one play right there. It blew the game open to a 2,000 to 3,000 gold lead. Mordekaiser fell behind off Viper, making a huge mistake, ulting double lift away from Santorin, who was flanking around.
Yeah, when you see these fights where no one is really that low, that's how you know how bad the game has been going. Because usually the fights, come down like trade 1 for 1, 2 for 2. This is where Team Liquid just started taking away the game, and FlyQuest is just, please stop.
Well, and just as you said, Mark, how there is that slight caveat that even Doublelift admitted that these were very different games between the two. One of them, he was playing Senna, and then another one on Aphelios. So very different play styles there. Yeah,
I mean, he talked Senna down a little bit, but we see globally she's a very, very powerful champion. Yeah. But I do think it still holds true for him. He is not the kind of player you think should be good at Senna. And so when he swaps to Aphelios, yeah, it's not really the same exact Team Liquid. So I can understand FlyQuest losing a little bit worse, but it's still isn't quite the same thing, just based off how bad that play was by Viper.
Yeah, that's just that has nothing to do with it. Senna has nothing to do with these wins or losses and why those games were different. Let's be honest, Senna is just an
You don't want to save him at all? You don't want to give him that life vest?
No way. This is too big of an excuse.
Too big? All right,
fine. Too big of an excuse. Yeah. I think that...
Senna's fine, it's good.
Yeah, and the lane swaps, I think you saw Team Liquid doing a little bit better. They struggled against Dignitas, but it really does come down to a lot of how you react to that. And so when they did that lane swap, I thought what FlyQuest was doing was smart, where you try and catch the AD carry out by keeping your top laner sitting in the brush. But Viper just had such a bad play that, like, even you tweeted out after, like,
whoops, wrong button.
Someone get me out of this game. I deserve a ban. I need a timeout.
Well, speaking of which, we did touch a bit on that matchup between Hooney and Viper, but are there any other considerations as far as the way that their play styles match up against one another from what we've seen so far?
I don't know. Hooney's actually been playing slightly, I'm not going to say weird, but not super Hooney style. We saw like 2 Gangplanks and a Renekton. So Renekton, I was like, all right, Hooney's going to start smashing people, but then he's like early picking GP. I'm like, I understand that. But I'm kind of excited to see what picks come out, especially on red side, if one of them will actually take the counter pick, or they'll just do power pick and match up evenly.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a bad play out of Viper. That's not indicative of his skill level at all, as much as we're ragging on him. Like, he has game-winning moments. He solo won them game one on Riven, and he does have good moments on other champions, and so I think that this will be one of the most important matchups for FlyQuest. I think, like you're saying, Huni is not going uber lane dominant, playmaking, because he doesn't need to right now on Dignitas. He has a really great team behind him. FlyQuest does feel like they don't have quite as much firepower, and so Viper does need to step up.
I mean, I think they're going to be, the only way that they're going to be winning these kind of games is like, I'm not going to try to dominate top lane. So I think them going into this, like, I think they have a better plan than what we're talking about right now, where like top lane is going to be the killer. It's like, nah, top lane's not going to be the killer in this matchup.
Yeah.
Saying both of these players have such an aptitude for flashiness within their play, but sometimes you do expect one to pull it back depending on what the team needs. But predictions aside of how things are going to be going in the top lane, overall speaking, it looks like everyone's on the same
boring.
page. That's not fun, guys.
I mean, I kind of hinted to when I said there's going to be some flapping going on. I think Dignitas has this one pretty easy.
Yeah, I think Dignitas will take this. I'm hoping for a sub 30-minute game because I do want to see Dignitas push themselves a bit. I think their week one opponents were okay, but I do want to see them when they're playing against teams like FlyQuest, who picked up 2 wins in the first week, which are great, but I think those were kind of easy wins. I want to see Dignitas like crush and not just like win for 45 minutes or something like that.
Right.
Would you say your predictions would have maybe been slightly different had you not considered the Team Liquid versus FlyQuest game, thinking before how kind of smashed they got in that one?
I would still give it to Dignitas, but I think you're right that left a pretty sour taste in my mouth watching them make such bad individual plays. It wasn't like, Team Liquid picked them apart. They self-exploded.
Yeah, and I think the individual plays are really important, especially against a team like Dignitas, mentioning that they're a really strong solo queue team. Just on paper, their floor is very high. High floor. So them playing against players who are going to mechanically make misplays, like, that's going to be a big issue.
Well, and probably speaking of Dignitas, what do you think are their specific win conditions?
So for Dig, I would actually take a really, like, kind of weird way, is I'm going to try to crush what FlyQuest would win with. Because, like, I don't think I need to do anything as Dignitas to win. I don't need anything spectacular, but I do know Ignar is really important for FlyQuest wins. I mean, other than the FlyQuest Riven.
I was supposed to say lock Ignar down.
This is lock Ignar.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's chained down. I want to keep him down bot. I got Afremu on my team. He's a big roamer. So if I can get that bot lane winning and my support moves first, then I think I can lock down FlyQuest.
I think we're thinking about the game the same way. It's either going to be Ignar or Santorin. I'm actually going to look for Santorin for my win condition. I want them to do a really aggressive invade, go try and do the Meteos treatment that Closer gave to him. I want Santorin to attack Grig early and often with the help of his team, with delayed invades, with coordinated efforts, hopefully by working with Ignar, because that is the single biggest mismatch, I think, in favor of FlyQuest.
Actually, I think your win condition's a bit better because it's a bit easier to start that off because you can do it from level 1.
Yeah.
You don't need to outplay anyone.
Well, the hype train has been real for both of these teams here, which makes them fitting for Monday Night League. So I think it's about time for us to go ahead and send things over to our casters for game number 1.
Thank you very much, Gabby and Prawley and Mark. I am Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by Mr. Joshua Jat Leesman, and it's about time to jump into some Monday Night League here.
It's really exciting. You didn't like when I mentioned this during our first cast of the decade, but this is now our second official cast of the decade in the same week.
Are you going to keep track of them now?
I might.
Are we going to get to week 7?
2, if it happens the third time, now that you've kind of challenged me, I think I'm going to do that.
All right, we'll have to see when it happens next, but right now, we got Dignitas and FlyQuest coming up. As the desk was talking about, these two were a couple of the big winners after week 1. Everybody was pretty impressed with how they both performed. Then Dignitas surprises a lot of people by managing to take down Liquid earlier this week. FlyQuest not quite the same level of impressive play, but we'll see if they can redeem themselves here.
And it's actually a really interesting story that could only happen with LCS being 3 days a week because they have the same shared opponent so far before playing each other. So it's really easy to kind of, in your mind, do a little ranking of how good they look. Dignitas beat Team Liquid, and FlyQuest got absolutely demolished. So that's what they talked about along the desk, how Dignitas come into this as a favorite, But you never know in League of Legends. You never know what adjustments would have been made and what FlyQuest can try and answer back with.
Well, Dignitas is going to go ahead. It's tax season. They're paying the Riven tax right about now, making sure that doesn't go into the top lane there for FlyQuest. Also banning out the Akali. I'm running out of clever jokes to make about that. It's banned every game. Blitzcrank banned out by Dignitas as Tom Kinch, Elise, and Lucian are taken out. And there you go. It's Rumble picked for FlyQuest.
The Rumble first pick. And FlyQuest can do this because it's a flex pick.
Yes.
If this was just a top lane Rumble, you betcha Huni would have a counter pick ready that he'd be comfortable smashing Rumble with. But because it is flexible, they're going to be a little bit more okay locking it in early.
And I also like the fact that it's a denial pick along with the flex potential, considering this is one of the champions we've seen Huni pop off most on in the past.
Yeah.
You keep it out of the hands of Dignitas. You get it in your own lineup. And it looks like Dig are going to respond with a couple of power picks of their own. The boss already locked in, set there in the top lane. And we'll see whether or not they want to go ahead and lock in that Aphelios. He's been doing a lot of work lately.
He really has. With Senna open, you wouldn't be too surprised to see Wild Turtle match with that. I'm hoping that we see Huni play this set, even though I think it can actually be played in the jungle in the right circumstances, because so much of Set, from what we've observed, is he is a kiteable champion, but he's an incredibly strong frontliner, and he's really good when the other team tries to dive on top of him.
The essence of a jugger.
Exactly, and we've also seen, as the Senna gets locked in and Aatrox is likely going top lane now, we've also seen a few creative uses of Set to find good flanking engages. Why I'm interested to see Huni on it is he's a player who can be so aggressive, you'll have no choice but to hit him.
Yeah.
And that's where Set's kit will actually be the strongest, so I want to really observe how Huni positions himself on the map in teamfight so he can get off the biggest haymaker possible.
Well, we're going to have Thresh also locked in here for Dignitas before the second part of the bans come through. Those picks will not be mirrored, as we talked about earlier this week. It appears like frequently these days the first half of the draft does get mirrored with rolls from each side. Will not be the case here this time around. We'll see how that affects the second half of the bans as Syndra and Nautilus are removed.
Absolutely. I wish I knew the name of the guy. Someone tweeted me today about like draft order because I was making points about Sven and how C9 has prioritized them more in draft. Across the league, though, marksmen are almost always getting picked first rotation. Even this, with Aphelios being second and Senna being third, is a little bit later than average for what your AD carries are locking in. But yeah, absolutely. You're going to lock them in before the first phase because at the moment it is clear cut. Those are the two top ones, and there's enough power pick bans that people are willing to just make that trade.
Right, when the pool is so tiny at the very top, but it's not so much so that they get banned out in that first wave, the trade is so often the play. You take that one, I'll take this one. It's a gentleman's agreement, a handshake in the draft to say we'll both take one of them, spin the bans on something else instead. Orianna and Leona are going to be those second bans, so it's two support bans coming out from Dig, two mid lane bans from FlyQuest, targeting those roles that they've already locked in, but their opponents haven't.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what Froggen has left to go up against this Rumble mid. FlyQuest getting to just basically target out Froggen, say these are the two no thank you champions. Victor would be something that would scale well into the late game, but would definitely lose a ton of push early and would really hurt their ability to go for early Rift Heralds or early Drakes. So with the way Dignitas is playing, the more I'm thinking about it now, that Rumble pick could provide a lot of problems. Top of mind, I don't have a pick that Froggen should do, but we'll see what he ends up locking in.
Well, it's already going to be Jarvan locked in here for FlyQuest. You saw them hovering over the Rex side, thinking about it for a moment. Is a pretty traditional counter to the Lee Sin, but hasn't been seeing a lot of great success lately, even in the counter matchup. So just going into the Jarvan for something that's more generally powerful. See if Morgana is the choice here. Very effective black shields against the hooks coming out from Thresh, but nope. It'll be Alistar for some engage and some disengage, some turret dive potential too.
Yeah, I love watching Alistar. I love playing Alistar. You basically shouldn't if Nautilus or Leona are up. So that's why I'm okay with Ignar picking it here. Because they clearly target banned out the more powerful tank supports, but I still think there's a lot of stuff you can do with Alistar, particularly in the roaming game. So I think directly in 2v2s against Thresh Aphelios, it's actually going to be a little bit of a rough lane. But as they mentioned on the analyst desk, if they can unlock him, he can be incredibly effective, like the mid lane ganking of Alistar, being able to actually headbutt someone backwards, some of the most powerful in the game from the support position.
I'm having flashbacks to Season 1 where Alistar builds Heart of Gold and Philosopher's Stone, never levels past 3 and just runs back and forth between lanes for the entirety of the game. The old school times, but speaking of time, we're going to lock in the boy who shattered it. Echo picked up for Dignitas and Froggen in particular here. This champion has been pretty crazy recently. He's been seeing a lot of play in the jungle, but also still mid lane. And the cooldown on the ulti gets insanely low after he builds some cooldown reduction and gets some levels, so there's a lot of outplay potential.
It gets low enough that you should actually use it for recall. Like, you go back to base, you buy all your items in under 3 seconds, then you all back to where you recalled from.
Yep.
Is a good strat for that. In terms of, like, I was wondering what Froggen is going to play, this at least has a lot of tempo. So I don't think it's necessarily a pick where he'll be going for solo kills. He will be able to get kills with gank assist, but it's like Rumble shoves in so fast, you need something that can try and keep up, and a teleport Echo who has multiple ways back into the lane and good wave clear, I think is a strong choice.
And an interesting thing about Froggen, something that I've enjoyed seeing in the conversations online between the fans about this Dignitas that has shown up really good so far in their first 3 games. Even the longtime Froggen fans, it seems like the thing they're excited the most about isn't just, hey man, Froggen's popping off. It's Froggen's popping off, and he looks like he's got a team around him in all these other positions for what a lot of people are saying is the first time ever. And that's what's really exciting, is to see what can happen when Froggen isn't the man bearing all the weight on his shoulders.
For sure. I mean, Dignitas talked about building this team around Huni. It was Hunitas for a little bit during the offseason, but it is a great opportunity for Froggen this year. While he can still be a star player, he won MasterCard Player of the Week in Week 1. The fact that Huni was actually like the star piece and Froggen can just kind of do his stuff, I think unlocks a lot of potential for him.
It just relieves some of that pressure, lets you do you. Have a time of your life there in the mid lane, and we'll see if he can pop off here this time around. We're on to the Rift for FlyQuest versus Dignitas. 2-1 for FlyQuest, 3-0 for Dig. Only one other team in the league, 4-0 at the end of Week 2, and that is Cloud9, who everyone is saying seem to be the standout performer so far, along with Dig. So if Dig wants to keep that up, they need to take this win and keep that record clean.
Even just a week and 4/5 into the season.
A week and 4/5.
That's exactly what it is.
I mean, you're correct. We've just never been in a position where we've used that metric before.
Looking at the slate of games we have on Monday Night League as they set up kind of defensive lines, the 3-0 Dig going to be undefeated against the 2-1 FlyQuest, and then the marquee COD TSM matchup being the 0-3-1-2.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought that was going to happen coming into the year? For me, yes, this is a glass half full take. Don't flame me too much. It actually makes me happy in a sense that I can be very excited for both. We have Dignitas, a team that's been gone for a while, and some players that have been looking for LCS success have the chance to be that 4-0 team, like the new powerhouse team. And then TSM COG is always going to be entertaining for me, regardless of their record, because it is such a storied rivalry. So just kind of setting the stage for Monday Night League as a whole, I can't wait to see both games.
And Dig is super fun to follow too, I think, because after last year, after Clutch makes their run and gets to Worlds, and it's announced they're going to be rebranding after, and then we move into the new season, and a lot of the roster changes, and a lot of people were like, is this the right move?
The gank.
But we'll see if the gank happens here on the top side. Huni! Oh, man, he is exploded. Boss ain't doing nothing about that.
Oh, man. That was actually a really smart gank from Santorin. If we look at what he ended up doing, Huni, as set, always wants to play aggressive early. And the gank path that you're expecting, if bot lane pulls, which Huni knew they would have pulled because Wild Turtle and Ignar started with red buff, is you're saying, okay, the time for him to do red buff, blue buff, and Gromp and gank beat level 3 is this. So Huni thinks he has about 25 more seconds, hasn't warded yet, but hey, guess what? He's just gonna kill you. I don't even think he saw the flag until he was dead.
Yeah.
So just really good path from Santorin. He only lost about 10 to 15 seconds of overall efficiency to make that first blood happen.
Let's see if Grid can make something happen here in the mid lane in retaliation. Power of Evil does have the HP advantage for now. Grid and Froggen will chase him off to the side. This could quickly turn into a multi-man collapse from Dignitas. Power of Evil forced to flash away. Huni flashing after him, but Set doesn't have a stun with the face breaker unless he pulls something else in.
Ooh, that was one of those plays from Huni where he's trying to do too much. Like he was a little bit embarrassed that the early game happened, so he tried to make a big play mid. Now he's lost more experience and been down his flash. The wave was pushing against him, so he didn't lose a huge amount of experience, but it still makes him even more vulnerable up in that top lane, now flashless and teleportless.
Unforced error.
I think so.
Yeah. Not something that Huni needed to do, but felt compelled as Ignar finds himself grabbed up here by the death sentence in the bottom side. Lots of CC coming in there, and Johnson! This kid has been on everybody's radar these first couple of weeks, and he is popping off ridiculous.
That was slick by both Johnson and Aphromoo, the way they layered CC. I'll go over that during the replay, but awesome to see the synergy of them going for the aggressive plays early on in laning phase as a teleport laner. So not only they got the solo kill against the combat summoner lane. When this game hits 8 minutes, or even just with how much pressure they gain from that, can't say no.
Really well done stuff here from Dig, getting themselves a kill in retaliation for that first blood FlyQuest had. Game's dead even. Froggen warding up the side of the lane here. Just going to be watching out to see if Santorin wants to get involved here in this mid lane. He has gone back to shop, does have the skirmisher Saber. Viper seems to be doing all right here in the top side up against Huni. Again, when you're playing against Set, his mobility is incredibly limited, so you don't have to really feel like he's going to be able to jump on you and just kill him all on his own. You pretty much need to put yourself in a spot where he can make those sorts of moves, unless he gets a big flank like you were talking about.
Yeah.
But 1v1 in lane, a flank's not normally this good.
Yeah, definitely not. I think if Huni doesn't want to die in that lane, he's not gonna. I think he should, and I think the same is pretty true for Viper as well on Aatrox, so kind of expect them to split up, or sorry, split the farm in the lane, and then their impact will ultimately be felt in teamfights.
Johnson will just keep farming up here on the Aphelios. Has the Gravitum. No level 6s online for anybody here across the Rift just yet. But Viper getting the better of Huni in this trade, stepping to the side of the Haymaker. He'll still take damage, but considering he's not in the center line, that means he will reduce it at least to physical instead of true. Viper's a guy where I'm particularly going to be keeping my eyes on because I feel like he had a lot of errors in the game against Team Liquid, trying to ult double if Aphelios, putting himself in a spot where he would just get 1v1. He's up against the champion again. I'm sure he's painfully aware of the lessons that he learned in the game earlier this week, and I really want to see how he plays.
Yeah, if Aphelios has the Healy gun and the white gun, you gotta stay away from being really melee with them, is one of the lessons. But watching this early lane, so we know the pressure created by Johnson and Aphromoo is what's actually unlocking Grig to do this 6-minute Ocean Drake right now, and the timing is particularly good for them right now. So notice how Johnson still has his teleport. This means they can take the Ocean Drake, they can shove in another wave, they can go back to base and run for Rift, and basically, if Wild Turtle matches the Rift play, they'll get first dibs on bottom lane. I was talking with Prawley earlier, like, if 8-minute Rift Herald is going to be the meta, then teams should just be taking teleport 80 carries. The fact that Dignitas is the team that's starting to set the 8-minute Rift Herald meta just makes sense that they're also already bringing teleport.
Easy to prepare for the strategy that you're molding, that you're crafting, that you're introducing. You're the one who has all that knowledge into it. Gold still very close here between these sides as Power of Evil and Froggen have the ultis turned on here in the mid lane. You can see Power of Evil just now ticking level 7 here on the Rumble. Sorcerer's Shoes rush for the extra magic penetration just to make sure that when he does find the damage with those Flame Spitters, it hits hard. Froggen taken solo, has to chrono break back as the equalizer comes down. Grig is nearby to prevent any kind of a dive, but Froggen definitely comes out worse for wear on that one.
He does, but they got the equalizer, which I think is really important with Rift Herald spawning in 30 seconds. So I want to track here if Johnson can get this wave shoved out and if Dignitas try and go for Rift Herald play, because the thing that would stop them from going for Rift Herald play would be the fact that they don't want to do a river fight against a Rumble. With equalizer down, I think it becomes a lot more palatable.
Huni shoving out that top side as well here. You can see the wave building up, so Viper's going to have to respond to that one. He'll roam down into the river, set up some vision, potentially make way for the rest of the team to show up there. And you can see the On My Way ping coming out from FlyQuest. They recognize this could be the call here from Dignitas.
Yeah, so watch the minimap and watch Aphromoo. He just recalled, he's heading towards Rift. Ignar's on the same page. But the interesting thing here is these two AD carries, one has teleport, one doesn't. So even though Ignar's roaming up, there's going to be a numbers advantage for Dignitas when they get there.
Huni trying to scare Power of Evil away from this control ward, but there's not a whole lot Set can do about it when there's more players there on the opposing side. Just kind of has to sit there and watch that get taken out. Neither team wanting to commit towards that Rift Herald yet. There's still a lot of housekeeping to do, keeping track of the players from the other side, getting the vision set up, overcommitting to something here, putting yourself where you're vulnerable to your opponent's collapsing could be a nightmare here for either team. But it looks like Dignitas are going to say, okay, we've got the advantage in that TP like you were talking about, let's start it up.
Good play by Dignitas, and because there's no equalizer on Rumble yet, they don't really have an answer. Another thing that I actually really liked is that Johnson hadn't shown. Now that he's shown bottom lane, they're thinking of a fight, but he can just teleport in.
The equalizer is ready now, though. Santorin's going to be the target here at the very start. Huni tanking up here in the middle. Showstopper's not going to find a whole lot. He's still got the Haymaker ready to go. Equalizer comes down. Damage going through. Froggen is gone. And Dignitas do not want this fight. Afro moved down to 100 HP, and Viper's looking to take him out. Power of Evil grabs the kill, and Johnson is alone behind enemy line. He will not find anything this time, and that's a whole lot of kills for FlyQuest.
Woo, stand corrected there where FlyQuest couldn't do anything about it. They waited for the equalizer to come back up, and that was their moment to fight. And even though Wild Turtle doesn't have a teleport like Johnson does to match, he's got that R. He just hit everyone with his Senna Global, and they end up taking the fight convincingly. Let's watch this one more time. So it's like, Dig think they're pretty safe here, but it looked to me like the teleport from Johnson was a little bit slow. So they're dumping a lot of damage on Santorin, but they're indecisive of whether or not they want to fight. And then once Grig goes in, they got to bail.
Well, back to live here. Wild Turtle almost found himself collapsed on there in the mid lane. Did have to use the flash to get away, but importantly, it does get him out. Doesn't end up having to pay for that one with his life. But yeah, not only was Johnson's teleport a little bit slow, but he also had to put it in a spot where he felt safe and he wouldn't be just throwing himself into the maw of the waiting FlyQuest players. Then he had an extra hike down into that Rift Herald pit where the fight was happening, and it just was not there for Dig. And now FlyQuest with a 1,500 gold lead. It's Power of Evil and Santorin who are topping the charts in that gold count. Santorin 2-0-2 here on the Jarvan. Cinderhulk completed, stopwatch ready to go. He's in a great spot to start these fights.
For sure, and the first pick Rumble is also paying off very well. Look for Santorin to make those aggressive plays around the map, but also really watch where Huni goes because he's the one with the eye. The ideal use of a Rift Herald before 14 minutes is to get about 2.5 plates yourself, then drop the Herald, since the charge does true damage for about half of a turret's overall health bar. That'll give you the first turret, but if they don't make a play beforehand, they're not going to get much use out of the Herald.
Second Drake spawning here in 5 seconds as well. FlyQuest have control over that bottom side river for now. Take a look at where all the ultis are. Senna ult not quite ready yet for Wild Turtle. Power of Evil does have the equalizer. Cataclysm's up and running for Santorin too. Dignitas almost have everything ready to go, but still need a few more seconds on the kick from Grig. Huni will continue shoving up the top side here. Has a very slight CS advantage over his opponent, but honestly nothing to really write home about. This lane is breaking even.
Yeah, and I mean, just comparing the power of the mid-level laners right now, an Ignite, Equalizer, Sorcerer Shoes Rumble versus like a little pistol on an Echo.
Magic pistol, man.
Magic pistol, the Hextech Revolver. There's no way they can go to River to contest this. So Santorin knows that, doesn't want to waste any time, gets that Mountain Drake locked up, and we got an Infernal Rift.
Infernal means more and more damage as the game goes on, and the potential of those extra procs if we get to the point where one of these teams gets Soul. Froggen continually on the back foot up against Power of Evil's Rumble, and I like seeing Power of Evil on this pick because he's slotted so hard by a lot of people into this control mages only playstyle. Rumble's not a 45-minute control mage. Rumble is an incredible team fighter in the mid game that can really take control over neutral fights and propel your team forward with objective play. And I want to watch Power of Evil, now that we're 13 minutes into this game, now that we're going to start getting into more of those big fights, to see if he navigates it right.
That's a really good point. And Dig trying to make a play towards the top lane because PoE was bottom lane.
Well, they will use Shelly, but they're only going to grab the first couple of plates with it. They will not manage to shave those plates off with their champions first and get more value out of slamming Shelly into the high armor and MR, but hey, money in the pocket, money in the pocket.
Grig.
Well, Santorin's able to get him in the Cataclysm. Ignite goes down. There comes a Wild Turtle ulti, but the damage going to be sidestepped. Greg trying to get out, but it is just hand-wrapped on a silver platter for Viper.
Oh, man, not many directions he could run away in that one. Really good patience by Ignar and Santorin, who Santorin is the guy who really feels like he's starting to take over this game with his positioning and the way he's initiating these fights, not even having to burn his stopwatch. Just catching Greg in transit there and gift wrapping Viper a kill.
I wish I could remember off the top of my head which split it was, but one of the recent splits where it was Team Liquid and Cloud9 and I believe TSM that were our top 3 teams. And when it came down to the all LCS team voting at the end of the split, Santorin was the only player outside of those 3 teams to make an all LCS team.
I think that was 2019 spring.
Yeah, I knew it was with one of the past 3 splits.
Yeah.
But that is one thing that stands out to me about him as a player, is even if he's on a roster that doesn't particularly stand out to people as a whole, he's the kind of guy that can have those kinds of standout plays as an individual.
Yeah, and that was the split where FlyQuest actually made semifinals. So whenever you're talking, hopefully, about FlyQuest, you point back to that split. You say, hey, look what they did with this roster. They were good. You can say Summer was a misstep, but now they've found Power of Evil on this team. They've got Ignar as support. Like, let's go do great things as FlyQuest. That's the sell for this team. And I think something that a lot of people don't realize about Santorin is how sacrificial he is willing to be for his team.
True team player.
He is very much a team player. Sometimes the correct team play is for Santorin to go try and kill everyone, and in those situations he will do that. But in other situations, the correct play is actually he sits in a brush while his mid laner pushes in the final wave. And that's something that'll actually set him behind in the game, but he's very, very willing to do. So occasionally, he ends up looking worse than he actually is. That's my opinion on Santorin.
It goes back to that conversation where laners always say it's the jungler's fault, but junglers always say, I can't do it if my laners aren't helping me. Santorin's the kind of jungler that is fully willing to forego his own investment for the sake of those laners. He's practically the guy that's on their side saying, yes, it is my job to be here to facilitate you. And so far, it's got him 100% kill participation. It's got him in a really good spot here in this game, and it's got him a Rift Herald here, the second one of the game. See Huni and Viper continuing to trade down here in the bottom lane, but what we said earlier still reigns true. These guys aren't dying unless somebody else gets involved.
Yeah, for sure. And you could see Dignitas was hoping to get involved in the bottom lane, but Viper's playing fairly safe, conservative side lane and allowing the team to play through Rumble Jarvan because that's really what they need to get done. It's also going to be kind of fascinating to watch this as FlyQuest is 1 teleport against 3, but so much stronger in team fights. So I think actually the correct play for FlyQuest in a lot of situations is to try and force fights, which really means Ignar and Santorin have to find good playing positions.
Johnson currently has the Reddit clip loadout with his gun, sniper rifle, plus the turret-creating, ninja star throwing crescendum. So those are the 2 that can catch you off guard and find you sniped down from 3,000 range away. One of them about to expire here very soon, so that means he probably won't have that for the next fight. Neither one of these side seems especially bloodthirsty. But the Drake is spawning in 30 seconds, and the count is tied 1-1. We'll see if that's worth fighting over. Froggen goes for a trade against Power of Evil here. Honestly, I feel like so many times we see the first 2 Drakes go to the same team these days. But since they're split up 1-1, it actually takes away the compelling argument of we need to go for this because neither side really feels that close or far away from it.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think Dignitas could be in a little bit of a holding pattern. Like, we know Aphromu is a player who can find a lot of picks, so if they do see Wild Turtle, they'll go for him. But, like, all FlyQuest wants is for Dignitas to fight them. So, like, here's kind of a perfect example of what's happening is Power of Evil moved bot lane to lend support to that area, and since Froggen still has his teleport, he's able to get turret damage. So the Drake is whatever. It's 4% attack damage and ability power. It does move them 1 closer to Soul Point, but that's still 10 minutes away. Both teams ended up doing the correct thing there based on their summoner spells and team comps.
And now I want to see where that leads afterwards as FlyQuest is grouped up here in the mid lane. They've summoned up the Rift Herald. They're looking to take down the tier 1. With plates out of the way, it should be very doable. Santorin's going in, looking to make the dive equalizer down into the pit. There is your dunk bucket, and they're trying to make some Aphromu soup. It's Power of Evil on a killing spree.
And the Senate can keep sustaining them after that fight, even though there was an attempted counter engage by Dignitas. Everyone's near full health again. I mean, they're considering continuing this push. They might go for an inhibitor.
So much damage comes out of this FlyQuest team in these mid-game team fights, man. Tier 3 turret, 20% HP left, and FlyQuest is just whittling it away. Huni and Froggen coming in from behind, looking for the flank. Viper's gonna be following up here in a moment. Froggen's gonna be denied. Ignar doing a good job making sure of that. Huni looking for a big haymaker, but only gonna find Power of Evil there on the very back end. Huni taken very low, and Power of Evil's on a rampage. Ignar barely gets away from Froggen, and it's a 1-0 fight so far for the side of FlyQuest. What else can they get? Not Froggen. Echo so very mobile, gets himself back out of trouble, but things have just gone FlyQuest's way non-stop for the past while now.
Yeah, FlyQuest is doing the right thing, and Dignitas is not able to keep up with the response. This is actually a very telling. I'm going to try and get the story in really quick. When you're the team that's behind, I was talking with Crawley earlier, it's really dangerous to be the one pushing sides because the team that's ahead is just going to dive you. So in this situation, Dignitas should not have been defending this turret. They should have been back, especially with the Rift Herald about to charge them. So they're set up for failure here. Then, after they've already had someone die, then they teleport in. So now they're set up in a 4v5 situation and don't actually have the tools to stop the other 5. The way it usually works is the team that's behind is the team that gets caught grouping, and the team that's ahead is the one that wants to play the sides. The weird thing about this game is the team that's ahead doesn't have teleports, and the team that's behind does. So they're still trying to play these sides, and you're seeing how easily FlyQuest can punish it. So again, Dig continue to try this fight, but they really just don't have the tools. Their teleports are down, they don't have flank position. FlyQuest still has 5 people alive, and they just continue to gain more damage.
And you saw from Huni's death there, I feel like between that and the attempted flash facebreaker that we saw early on in the mid lane after he died for first blood at level 2, it seems like we're getting some of the classic Huni tilt. Because after he used the Haymaker shield, that's not coming up for another 6 seconds. He had 20% HP. He had no business going anywhere but home, and they sent him there in a body bag.
Absolutely, and this is the Team Dignitas from behind, which we haven't seen so far this split. They looked very clean in 3-0 when they were ahead, finding aggressive plays, but what is looking like is the case here is when they're not in position to make aggressive plays, they're still going for it, and they're doing it into this very, very powerful Rumble. So, do have to credit FlyQuest in this case for kind of just, even without Teleport Rumble, like PoE has controlled this game along with Santorin. Every fight where he has Equalizer up is a fight they're going to win. And they're just going to continue to control these objectives, 1 minute, 20 seconds until that next Infernal.
And Rumble's build is pretty much exactly where it would want to be. Double spell penetration items, Leandri's Torment, all completed around 21 minutes. Morello Nomicon is also picked up here to help deal with some of the healing that could be coming out from Froggen's ultimate. I know there's a lot of discussion these days on Twitter about whether or not Morello Nomicon should be built in each individual game. We'll leave that up to everyone to form their opinions, but it will provide some extra damage, some extra healing negation power, as that Infernal Drake is up in 45 seconds. This one would put FlyQuest on Soul Point, and they feel completely comfortable stepping up into Dignitas territory, controlling that area, putting down wards, stealing away the blue buff, as Viper finds himself in a 1v3, but he won't find himself there for long. Easy pickup there for Dig. Will they be able to put themselves down to the bottom side river in time for the Drake, or do they just say, no, we're not worried, and take the tier 2?
I don't know if they even try, because we got a 10-second desync between the Infernal Drake and Viper's timer, so he'd be able to teleport in, and Dig would just get caught in another team fight. For Dignitas to come back in this game, they need to not team fight as much as possible. So it's on FlyQuest to group either around mid or around objectives and win those groupings. Now they're just trying to chase Dignitas up in the top lane. Infernal's actually temporarily forgotten.
Froggen doing a good job zoning everybody away. He knows he's on a champion that is incredibly difficult to lock down and actually pick off. He provides an escape route for the rest of his team in the Lee Sin and the Thresh to make sure that they don't get collapsed on by FlyQuest. So Fly won't get any sort of return kill, but they do have control over this bottom side river with Turtle, Santorin, and Power of Evil marching down there. This is surely their dream.
Yeah, absolutely. Soul check-in, Wild Turtle's at 38, so he'll get 40 off of this Dragon because it's going to drop. 40 is a great breakpoint for AD carry Senna, giving him a little bit of that extra range. At this point, he's going to be, I believe, outranging Aphelios, which is pretty important come later fights. So just continuing to power up. Like let's see how well they can play around Baron, because there's a real chance that the game stalls out for at least the next 5 minutes. The Senna team is so bad at taking Baron. They've already taken mid lane down to the inhibitor, and Dignitas just needs to not get engaged on while they're exposed mid lane.
Exact numbers, 40 is where Senna hits 650 base range, so she's now equal to a Caitlyn, which is also equal to a Felios with Calibrum, but none of his other guns.
Yep, good call.
So, although it may still be possible for Johnson to fight him on equally ranged footing, it will be difficult and very dependent on having that sniper rifle ready to go. You can see in Turtle's inventory, he's got the Duskblade, second Dirk also there, stacking up that lethality, Muramana fully charged. The Senna will be very powerful in this upcoming fight. Stoneplate also done for Santorin. First big item after the jungle item completion. That means he'll be so tanky when he initiates these fights and traps everybody in that Cataclysm wave.
Yeah, it's going to be a very tanky dive if you consider the Alistair, Jarvan, and Aatrox to go in. And if in a game like this where one team has a moderate edge over the other, a lot of times I'll say, like, what does the losing team need to do to come back?
Right.
Like, if Dig comes back in this game, a lot of it would be a Johnson carry. Once he gets Runans, there's enough melee divers that he would have the potential to carry a fight, since those melee divers are not extremely high in damage. So that's going to be the tricky thing to see if Dignitas can stall out until he hits those items.
You heard him, Dignitas fans. Keep your eyes on Johnson, as Froggen will use the chrono break here in the top side, looking to buy himself a little bit of extra time, but the equalizer comes down. Stasis goes through, and Power of Evil is unstoppable. With Grig out of the way, Hooney's trying to find one in return. He gets a shutdown. His own stopwatch going to be used here now. Afremu with the lantern to bring him to safety. Death Sentence finds its way onto PoE. A nice haymaker going to follow that one up. Johnson is now caught out, and there is no way to do the damage when you're dead like that. Froggen TP's back in, but it's not in time to do much of anything. FlyQuest take the fight.
Oh man, Johnson died fast right there. Viper just absolutely obliterated him at the end of that fight. The silver lining is the fact that Dignitas got a shutdown kill, but that's the type of stuff FlyQuest wants to have happen. They got a 5v5 fight around an objective. They were able to get a lot of equalizer damage down, win the fight, extend their goal.
That was also the stopwatches from both Froggen and Hooney, so you won't see another one of those from Hooney throughout the game. Froggen needed to upgrade to Zonius to get another. Let's take another look at how it started.
Yeah, this all started with Aatrox in the bottom lane as well, so FlyQuest ends up teleporting into this. Froggen does get a lot of damage down, but I think the Stoneplate definitely baits Grig pretty hard into thinking it's going to be a quick kill on Santorin. And even though Hooney can finish off the kill with the Haymaker, by that point, like, look at the actual position fight. Ignar gets Johnson's flash early. Froggen's out of the fight. Like, where is their damage actually going to come from as Johnson tries to step up? Viper just obliterates him because there's nothing to peel for Johnson in that scenario.
FlyQuest continuing to maintain their lead here, 4,000 gold up. And with that 4,000 gold, they command enough of a lead. The Dignitas must be very respectful here in about 70 seconds when that Drake spawns. You have to choose. Do you fight a mid-game team fighting comp in the middle of the game at a team fight objective, or do you surrender the Infernal Soul, which could just be that amount of damage they need to always be able to blow a Felios up?
It's one of those scenarios with no good answer, which is always tough to realize when you're the team. So, I mean, Dignitas is going to go for a fight because they saw Rumble pop with no TP, but it didn't work. Froggen did not get the execution.
Froggen does have the Zhonya's Hourglass, uses it to buy himself enough time to allow Afremu to provide the escape, but now Johnson's jumped on. There is no way out. FlyQuest have already found one, and it's the most valuable target on Dignitas. Looking to find even more as they chase after Afremu. Box drop down to buy a little bit more time, but not today, sir. Viper takes him out, and that's a 2 for 0. FlyQuest is making this look easy.
Yeah, their teamwork has been on point here. Wild Turtle assisting from long range, but more so just like the power of this Rumble Jarvan combo on top of... Okay. To see that one, that was... Well, I kind of like to see it, but we didn't have to.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, we know the story. Greg got hit, he died. There we go.
He went poof. And now the Infernal Drake's going to do the same thing, and with Infernal Soul now in their loadout as well, FlyQuest is scarier than ever. This team now has all the tankiness, all the damage, all the lead. This game is theirs to lose.
Yeah, Infernal Soul, that never goes away. Baron's still there. And again, Dignitas has fallen behind with a 1-3-1 composition, so they have very limited options. Not that they're playing this one perfect by any means, but FlyQuest is playing so well as a team. Like, Stoneplate Jarvan just initiating without regard for his own life, because he knows he's completely fine. He knows he's got the Stoneplate and the damage can't be retaliated. So they're picking on the flashless Aphelios over and over again. Easy to chase down Aphromoo. Let's see this Grig play. A little bit of desperation when you're trying to go for the Drake Soul. And yeah, I think Wild Turtle just
shot him 3 times.
That'll happen.
That was about it.
That'll happen.
No more, no less. 3 shots. You're out of there. FlyQuest onto the Baron now. Dignitas really just don't want anything to do with this. They know there's no way they can contest a fight. Grig might try for a Miracle Steal. Sonic Wave looking to go in, but he'll be blown up before he ever gets the chance. Santorin buying some time. He's not in the pit. Froggen could try to make some sort of a steal happen. Huni goes in. Could this be the Haymaker? It is taken by Dignitas. You have got to be kidding me. FlyQuest, they lose the Baron. They trade 2 for 1, but that is not worth it. You don't want to be giving those away.
Come on, FlyQuest, come on! You got the Santorin Smite, and there's no way Grig survives to make his way into the pit. So if you're gonna hop over with somebody else and keep your Smite alive, because let's watch this one more time. Baron at 3K, Viper and Ignar already got this under control. Like, they're gonna stop him. Santorin jumps over the pit. Actually, Grig kicking him further back is good. Johnson finishes him off. But anyway, oh crap, like there's no one with Smite here. Rudy and Froggen both just kind of go, and terrible equalizer by PoE. He was trying to kill Froggen, but really should have just laid it down in the pit. And then, oh my goodness, Froggen gets it with Lit Bane auto attack.
And it was an 87 health, so you could have breathed on it or just looked at it the wrong way and it would have died. A support auto attack probably would have been able to take it out as long as you didn't have the debuff, but
yeah.
That's tragedy there for FlyQuest. Everything was going so good. Things were looking clean there for a while, and now they got to deal with the fact that Dignitas has Baron for about 90 more seconds. Of course, the Baron power play is not going to look too impressive. They won't really have a chance to do anything with it, but it will buy them time.
Yeah, I mean, they can't win team fights.
No.
And they can't necessarily make stuff happen in side lanes because none of their side laners can win 1v1s. So, yeah, they got the Baron.
Yeah, that's it.
In terms of like what are they going to be able to do with it, I don't think they're going to be able to do much. Wild Turtles at 75 souls, going on 80. FlyQuest can just keep doing this. It just might take a little bit longer.
Santorin continuing to lead the charge there on the front lines. Tier 2 turret going to fall. Huni trying to run at FlyQuest, but as they kite back, it's very difficult for Set to make a lot happen. Froggen dealing with Ignar off to the side. Santorin also going to be keeping them away as Aphromoo melts away. The Guardian Angel going to proc there. Huni will be kept alive only a moment longer, and now he's gone too. 2 for 0 for the side of FlyQuest. And Ignar's just doing a great job being a distraction. He kept Froggen out of the fight. Froggen looks to at least try to get something in return. He chrono breaks back, but now he doesn't have it any longer. He'll buy as much time as humanly possible with that stasis, but Turtle, he times it right, and the Dawning Shadow takes the kill.
Did you see that equalizer damage on the top of the screen?
It's a bunch.
With Infernal Soul? Good Lord, that was... It basically just one-shot 2 people on Dignitas as PoE went in there with all of his Magic Pen and his Infernal Soul. Whoa. We mentioned Dig couldn't win team fights. They tried anyway. This could probably be the final push.
I'd rather see them try than just go down sitting next to their fountain watching the entire base evaporate, but when you're this far behind, it's so difficult to make it happen. There's your damage. Power of Evil, legendary, just popping off this game. 9-0-4. Huni trying to frontline, trying to just give a moment's rest to Dignitas, but instead he'll give him yet another kill over to the side of FlyQuest. Plant some trees, baby. That one's for nature. FlyQuest, take Dig down.
And there is no reason to do anything but smile right now for FlyQuest because that was such a good bounce back game for them. We mentioned this week both FlyQuest and Dig came in at 2-0 and had a shared opponent in Team Liquid. The fact that FlyQuest lost that game so handily and Dignitas had that very close win, everyone, you wouldn't find a soul that would say FlyQuest should be favored in this game over Dignitas.
No.
But they showed up on the day. The Rumble first pick, while a little bit peculiar, worked out great because they got to the Phase 2 bans and Froggen didn't have a great answer for it. They won that first Rift Herald fight, and then their teamwork just reigned supreme. Dig just kept trying comeback play after comeback play after comeback play, and FlyQuest just kept kind of batting them away. So now they're both 3-1. That's a great bounce back for FlyQuest.
Yeah, I feel like these teams are very close together once again. After the games earlier this week, like you said, the Liquid being the example, FlyQuest looked really bad. But now, today, Dignitas looked really bad in that game. So they've each had 3 really solid games, one that wasn't exactly how they wanted it to go, but it's still promising for the two teams as a whole. And FlyQuest, to be able to have that really bad game in the first game of the week, take a day, look over the VOD, say, hey, here's what went wrong, here's how we fix it, and then come back and do this. Yeah, the Baron was a little yikes. But aside from the Baron, it was a pretty solid game from FlyQuest.
Yeah, and this is the best thing and the worst thing about early season LCS, is how easy it is to react and form like confident opinions on team strategy.
Oh yeah, the pendulum can just swing wide.
Yeah, Dig at 3-0 with how good Johnson had been and Hooney and Froggen's history, like I was, damn, like Dig is they're
Hit the
top
button, they're going to
3.
Worlds.
Yeah, man, I love this team. And then after this game, I'm a little bit more skeptical. They made a lot of mistakes, but FlyQuest is resilient, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from this game. You already mentioned the mistakes they made in TL. They fixed them for this game, and now they're tied for second in the LCS.
Well, the Dig hype train might have to pull over for some refuel, but FlyQuest looked good. And for more on their victory, Pastry is standing by with their mechanized menace in the mid lane.
Thank you so much. I'm here with Power of Evil. I personally cannot believe they left Rumble open for you. Were you surprised to get that pick in the draft?
Well, I felt like we had really good success on it last time already, so I assumed that it's banned, and I think we assumed that going to the draft. When it was open, I think we were all pretty happy about it.
Certainly based on the gameplay we saw, that kind of makes sense. After you lost to TL, though, was there anything different that FlyQuest did or you did in preparation to kind of reset and make sure you got this win?
Well, so we had pretty insanely good scrim results, so we were pretty disappointed losing against TL that strongly. I think we were all a little bit shocked, but I think it was good as well for us to work on our mistakes, work on our early game, and even a little bit draft as well. I think TL got the better of us in the drafting phase as well. So I think today I felt we got the better draft, and I think we played the early game really, really good. We got the early kills. We just played for Dragons. The Baron was a little bit unfortunate. I feel like we should have gotten that, but that was a really good steal by Froggen, and yeah.
Well, certainly looking good. Congratulations on the win today. We will see you later at the Bud Light League Lounge, but for now, we are going to throw it back to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you so much, Pastry. Now, that was a game that I want to go to you first, Mark, because you had some interesting ways to evaluate just how hot a team is. Do you care to reevaluate
This
them?
might be a big in-joke that people who did not watch the countdown yesterday will not understand, but apparently flaming hot Cheetos lose to lukewarm tea because they get soggy, and that's how FlyQuest was able to come away with the win.
Well, you can still cool down tea, and it can be good. So I don't know if there's anything.
Big debate.
Yeah.
If people don't understand that, my references, go back and watch yesterday's countdown. You'll get it. It was a great joke.
Anyway, going to the top of this game that we just witnessed. First, got to talk about the draft because there were some interesting things happening there, all the way from the top with the bands selected over from Dig's side, and then some of their follow-up as well with their picks.
I mean, so I appreciate that they watched the show before they go on
listened to your win
stage.
condition. It was a bad win condition.
Yeah, it was a nice, pretending to be a coach, but I think they went a little bit too hard in my suggestion. So next time they should just ask for more details and I'll help them out. But yeah,
you are right
that
over
was
here.
the problem.
It's not
they
that far from the stage.
overbanned support and focus on bot lane. So I like the focus on bot lane. I think Blitz ban is good. They've shown they prioritize Thresh, so it makes sense. The Riven ban in 1-2-3 seems weird because honestly, never seen him pick Riven that early. So you can save that for 4 or 5 and ban that Rumble because it looks like the Echo is not a good answer to it. And LeBlanc was open, but that doesn't seem great into it. So knowing PoE plays this seems kind of goofy to give him something.
Yeah, I think the double support ban is I can see them going let's just target what we know they're good at in the first phase and do reactions in the second, but then they didn't. I mean, maybe they knew because we've seen PoE play Rumble already this year. Maybe they thought Echo was the answer, or maybe they just should have, focused on some other picks instead of going for that support pinch that they did.
So, how many Dignitas games have they won with Froggen playing a split pusher, side laner, not a scaling
I wasn't going to
fighter?
say it first, but I don't want to see Froggen's assassins for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I like they're extending their playbook a bit, because if you have Echo and win with it, it's kind of like scary. Like, oh no, they can pick Echo and our Syndra. But when you pick it in this situation, it just looks like they kind of didn't know what to pick, so they picked Echo.
Yeah.
Well, in the Echo versus the Rumble in the laning phase is one thing to think about, but the Rumble in particular, once you hit 6, going into that Herald fight that we saw, where Dignitas really wanted to try and grasp this for themselves, but hitting that level made it a difficult opponent from FlyQuest.
Yeah, so this is a big issue with the Rumble versus Echo matchup, not just being in lane, but when you get a team fight like this, especially early, like Rumble's impact is so much bigger than Echo's, who wants to split up the team fight and get a 1v1.
Yeah, and then if any of these early plays work out for Rumble, then that split push that you're probably hoping Echo will win in the mid to late game portion suddenly isn't in his favor. There are a number of times where there were monster trades that Power Evil could have taken or did take to push Echo out of the side lane. And I think this just shows that there's a lot more to FlyQuest than we probably gave them credit for, that we should have given them more credit for. They work really well as a team. Like, everything that you're going to see in these replay packages are basically 5v5s or 4v4s where they're out-executing their opponents.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best part about Rumble for them is like, yeah, PoE always played control mages. Rumble's not a control mage, but he plays kind of like one.
Yeah, he's a team fighter.
Yeah, he just wants to get grouped. So them playing this way, I think, is like very correct, especially for PoE, even though he's not a melee
It
mage
forces
player.
him to be more proactive in the early game, where sometimes I feel like if he defaults onto Orianna, they don't do anything in the early game. But with Rumble, you have to be proactive while still being a team
Well, it
fighter.
just feels so good. You
Yeah.
have this like gigantic ultimate, and you're like, I can win this fight by myself.
Yeah.
Well, that proactivity is expected to a degree, and when we're looking over at Dignitas thinking, okay, maybe how can they scale? How can they try and bring this back in their favor? It seemed like those opportunities became very limited when we ended up seeing that push towards mid-inhib, and that allowed FlyQuest to really start accelerating their domination of this portion of the game.
Yeah, this was really smart by FlyQuest. I mean, they had the Herald for a while, and they finally they didn't even have Cryo in the side lanes. They just grouped to mid because they had Herald, they have a better team fight comp. And as you can see, they just dive it 5 versus 3. And with Alistar tanking with his ultimate, like, no one dies. And Senna healing, too, it's just too hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, FlyQuest are trying to do, Dignitas are trying to do some kind of 1-3-1 setup, split push side lane. But if you're trying to side lane, and I know you harp on this all the time about losing teams trying to side lane, especially against a team with Alistar, Jarvan, you're going to get dove and murdered in the mid lane. And that's what happened. And then, if you flash out of the Jarvan once, then there's Alistar to catch you afterwards. And that was a beautiful dive by FlyQuest.
I mean, I think Dignitas played that correctly. I know it, sped up the game like crazy because the dive went off and they took 2 turrets and then, wait, did they take inhib there?
I think they took inhib turret.
Yeah, so they took like 3 turrets. So
I think.
Dignitas is in a bad spot because, yeah, they're behind, but if Echo stays with the mid, like, it'll stall the game a bit, but, FlyQuest is just going to keep getting stronger. So they put the onus on FlyQuest. If FlyQuest did not make that dive, and they choked, and they're like, oh no, they're pushing side lanes, what do we do? There's a chance FlyQuest made a mistake. So I appreciate Dignitas' play, but it was like, yeah, too
Maybe wait till they drop Rift Herald before going for the split.
Yeah,
Maybe, but that's the only criticism I would have for that. Just wait till they do it, and then you can try and split them up a little bit more.
Well, and this is FlyQuest's way of saying if we can't be undefeated at this point, no one can. But up next, it is a storied matchup between TSM and CLG, so don't go anywhere.
Hello.
Rick talk?
Hello?
I need jungle. I need jungle up.
Hey guys. No, I'm just like, if the situation's good, I can do it.
Turn
but-
jungler down a bit.
Turn him down like 5%.
What the f?
Guy's blasting.
A lot of people were like, is this the right move?
The gank.
But we'll see if the gank happens here on the top side. Hooney!
One more auto.
Here, flash.
Nice. Nice. Really good.
I'm gonna go mid. You back over.
Yo, try to get the seal if you can.
EQ.
Hold the Nash.
I'm running. Oh, nice, bro.
When you're this far behind, it's so difficult to make it happen. There's your damage. Power of Evil, legendary.
Every click,
Every frame.
Every press.
every sound.
They're playing aggressive.
I'll take mid, every advantage.
When the difference
Between winning and losing
is measured in milliseconds.
everything. Everything.
Everything counts.
The Alienware Legendary Battle Station.
I think the biggest difference between me and Biofrost is that I play more for the team, and he plays more for lane. And both styles can work in their own different metas right now. But I think currently in this specific meta, I think playing for your team is a must. And I think that's one of his biggest weaknesses and has always been since since he was on TSM in 2016 with Double Lift. I think he just learned how to play through lane and only lane. And yeah, he's pretty good in lane, right? Whenever it is that style. But I think nowadays it's going to be pretty hard for him to adapt because, you know, kind of old habits die hard. And I don't think he's a bad player, but I think that they made a decision off that. And, you know, I respect the choice. It's fine. Like, if they think that's right, then good for them. But I'm just going to be here trying to destroy TSM at every moment, yeah.
Hello and welcome back here for Game 2 of Monday Night League, Week 2. TSM are going up against Counter Logic Gaming. Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme.
And it's a lot of that going around of people trying to destroy TSM, right? Like when they trade a player, they're not necessarily super great on the way out, right? So these players want to come back and beat them. And that's the interesting wrinkle that's added to this huge COG versus TSM rivalry, the support trade, right? Like we're evaluating it. It hasn't worked out great for either of these teams. Both of these teams have definitely struggled out the gate, but there's that extra layer of, like for Biofrost and Smoothie, this game's pretty personal, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I mean, sometimes when you leave an org, you sign a contract with a new one. Sometimes you sign an oath of vengeance against the old one. We'll see how it works out here this time around. TSM in the blue, CLG in the red. Let's take a look at how the bans are coming across. Lucian on TSM, Akali from CLG, Jarvan banned out by TSM as well. We've seen plenty of him in the jungle recently, but TSM doesn't want to see him here this game.
And I think we saw an example of why he's rising in priority last game, where Huni died at level 1 to a flag and drag of a level 2 Jarvan who ran up the whole map with a red buff just to get the gank off. So banning Jarvan bans out some of the more creative early gank paths. Banning Rumble, which COG has done right here, stops you from completely dominating early river fights, which is what FlyQuest did last game as well.
Lee Sin also banned out from TSM, really targeting the jungle, paying some respect to Wiggly here.
Oh, I think this lines up for a first pick set. Oh. Yeah, so I think they're banning out a lot of the power pick junglers, and then they're going to flex set between top and jungle depending on what happens. They had an early priority on it before. Broken Blade played extremely well. We'll see. This is a educated guess.
All right, let's see how well educated you are, my friend. Now we don't get to have any fun with that. Well, let's see what they want to adapt to instead. I will eat my sock if they lock that in.
Yeah.
But Kiana, that is not worth such a bet. That champion we have seen pop off so many times in the past.
Yeah, and this is the patch where the attack speed in the jungle is actually nerfed. So jungling is even more difficult than it already was in pro. Yeah, the champion does still get banned a lot. It is likely in the mid lane, but this is a situation where Broken Blade has actually played a ton of Kiana as well. So there's a borderline triple flex with that pick, because it's still maybe pro-pickable in the jungle, it's pickable for Broken Blade top, and it's pickable for Bjergsen mid.
CLG lock in the Senna and the Tom Kench. Like you mentioned last game, AD carries are very high up in priority for what gets picked first these days, just because of how short, how small, how shallow, however you want to say that AD carry pool at the S rank is. Tom Kench going along next to her keeps her safe. The response from TSM, though, isn't going to be the Aphelios like a lot of people would expect. Yeah. Instead, it is this combo that we've seen pop up a few different times, the Lovers duo, the Xayah and Rakan.
Yeah, and I think this is a little bit of a band-aid for TSM in the fact that Aphelios on paper is stronger team fighting and maybe a little bit more utility, but TSM has struggled to find fights. Biofrost is a really good Rakan. They had some clutch Rakan initiations towards the end of their previous game this week, which was their only win. So Xayah Rakan makes sense for them.
Yeah, and remember TSM in the games that they've lost, it's not like it's just been a clean smack over and over again where they just get bopped from start to finish. They've had leads. They've just failed to translate those leads. So making sure that you have that go button means a lot. Olaf locked in on the side of CLG. That means he doesn't have to be afraid of the line of feathers or the big Rakan initiation as much as somebody else does. Also gives you a lot of control early on in the jungle. And this could be mirror picks so far. We don't know, depending on where that Kiana decides to go. So let's see what they want to ban out here in the second half. CLG, they take out the Grog.
I really like that Olaf lock by CLG because it denies the potential jungle pool even more. And if Dardoch does intend on taking the nerfed attack speed Kiana into the jungle, the clear speed is so slow but made worse in comparison to Olaf's just screaming clear speed.
Yeah.
So that could end up being really good for CLG as they ban out another one of the top junglers in Elise, which would leave either the Kiana or a Rek'Sai for Dardoch.
We mentioned last game about how Rek'Sai hasn't seen as much success as teams would like so far this split. Maybe that'll change, maybe it won't. Mordekaiser are banned away, so getting rid of some of the solo lane power there in the top side. 2 Juggernauts banned out here this game. Aatrox also banned out, so TSM wanting to keep Ruin away from things that could carry from the top lane.
Also, I think that leaves it open for Broken Blade Kiana top lane. As we talked about it before, those could be 2 matchups they're not wanting to play against. So a lot really still undecided in this COG TSM draft. COG needs to start with their solo laners here, and the LeBlanc pick is actually quite promising. It's been a power pick for some, and Bjergsen has played both sides of the LeBlanc-Zoe matchup, and I don't think has looked great in either of them, so I think that makes it kind of an even better pick in comparison for Crown right now.
Will they go with the Zoe? Will they go with something else? We know Bjergsen's been in the LCS for a long time. He's played a lot of different champions. Plenty of things he could go with here. Broken Blade is picking the Ornn, which I'm willing to bet is going into the top lane, so that means Jungle Kiana is the most likely outcome here. Yep. And there you go, one of those long-standing picks. We have seen Bjergsen on this season after season, the comfort pick, the Syndra locked in.
Such a classic for Bjergsen, and if he's to get back to his old ways of lane dominant, take over the game with Syndra, Syndra's the pick for that, obviously. But
yeah, you can't take over the game with Syndra if you haven't picked Syndra. Very astute observation, my friend. Live hit.
Can't be wrong when you say that. But yeah, and I am curious to see Bjergsen today as Sylas is the final lock-in, and that'll be actually really interesting. The top lane Sylas into the Ornn, being able to steal the Ornn ultimate.
Oh yeah.
Whew, that's a good
Ram's
one.
just running everywhere.
Yeah, but more so, like, Bjergsen has been quite sick. I don't think that's meant to be an excuse, but I do think it's one of the reasons he's had a little bit poor play, like coughing a lot, trying to practice through it. Dardoch's even talking about it in interviews. So I don't think Bjergsen has been playing very well so far. I wonder how much of that is due to the sickness, and I wonder if this Syndra can unlock some of that classic Bjergsen.
And whenever Sylas is locked in a game, the first thing I always look at, which ults are the big ones to steal? You already mentioned the Ornn ulti potentially being huge. Kiana's ultimate is among the most powerful in the entire game. So there's some huge team fight potential if Ruin can steal a right ult at the right time.
I feel like it's pretty much those two that he should be trying to bounce between. I don't think he's great with Syndra ult because he can't stack the orbs.
Yeah, you only get 3.
Yeah, he's pretty good with Rakan ult because it just adds to his CC chain. But yeah, Ornn and Kiana seem kind of unmatched for Sylas to steal.
The teams are loading in. We got one of the most historic matches in all of LCS loading up. These 2 orgs been around longer than pretty much anybody else. And I want to take you all back into a time machine here real quick, because before week 5 of summer 2019, it had been, I believe, 1,176 days that CLG went without beating TSM. For those of y'all who don't want to do the math yourselves, because I didn't want to do it either. I just happened to have a computer earlier, so I did.
Days.
That's almost 3 years without beating a team that they've had such a long rivalry with. They break that last summer. And for CLG fans, even if you're not doing so great right now, even with a 0-3 start, some of them would say, I'll take that as long as the one that's that first win is TSM.
Absolutely. And if you're able to match records with them, that means even more. Something that I really want to track this game early on is the Olaf versus Kiana. I thought when Dardoch played earlier this week against EG and Svenskeren was playing Kindred into Dardoch's Gragas, that's something where you have to be really good at predicting where the Kindred is going to go as the Gragas, and I thought Dardoch did that really well. Like, Kindred did I'm going to get a bit too detailed, but the Kindred did an invade onto Gromp, and Dardoch then did his Wolves as the Kindred was running up, and he basically called it out perfectly. It's so important that Dardoch predicts where the Olaf is properly, because the punish if you fall behind on jungle Kiana is so big, especially with the nerfs. So early ward by Wiggly into blue buff, and we'll see where they go from here.
It's just the nature of playing an assassin in League of Legends, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to cross a certain damage threshold, or that whole big, bad, scary assassin jumping out at you all of a sudden looks like a crappy Halloween sock puppet jumping out and going boo. You're not exactly afraid of it realistically anymore, and Olaf is just one of those champions that there are very few among the roster in all of League of Legends that can stand up to him in a 1v1 early.
Absolutely. And Wiggly, you're just going to see how quickly he power clears. Like, already done 2 of the most high XP camps in the game. Will be level 3. Like, just, all right. Just compare. Like, Dardoch is actually still on Raptors, just finished. Wiggly just finished his 3rd camp. So already 2 minutes, 15 seconds into the game, Wiggly is a camp up on Dardoch.
But look at the pings coming out from the side of
and
TSM.
They saw
so
that board.
CLG is tracking him. They see where Dardoch just was, but you saw the pings on the Gromp and the Wolf, and then the exclamation point ping on the red saying, hey, we expect that he's right here right now. We're expecting him to be on red. This is where you don't want to be.
Exactly. So that's the sideshow that's going on in comms, trying to track where Wiggly's going to be early. Wiggly missed his axe, though.
Unlucky.
Yep. That actually...
You don't lose a whole lot. I
hurts.
mean, he's got blue, so it's not like he didn't have enough mana to
Look at this.
be
They're
casting, but
evading a low health Olaf.
Bjergsen and Dardoch could go after something here. They won't.
They're trying to catch him at Krug. So a lot of times Olaf will be trying to finish his full clear for level 4, and TSM's on it.
They have discovered Wiggly. They've chased him away from the Krugs, but they won't get much else here just yet. Instead, may look to set up a 3-man dive here onto Ruin, but considering Wiggly is right there, it's way too risky at only level 3.
Dan, that was a little odd. So if we're thinking about timings, Wiggly missing his axe on red delayed his start of Krugs, which actually might have saved his life in like the worst way possible. Like that's just
it's one of those plays that you describe as so bronze it's challenger, because it seems like just a mistake, but then it's not. And it ends up resulting in a state where we have 0 kills to 0 kills, 3.5 minutes in. TSM tried to make a move, they didn't get it. We are paused. I will update you all as soon as we know exactly what the reason for that is. But yeah, Wiggly stays alive. He's happy about it. As you mentioned, Olaf, part of the reason he has that lightning fast clear is allowing himself to stay low HP in the jungle. And while people do respect him as this incredible early game duelist, if you find him instead of him finding you, sometimes you can get that early game, almost cheesy feeling kill.
Yeah, absolutely. They went for it. They were unable to get it. That will end up putting TSM in a disadvantageous situation. The pause is on the CLG side. We are currently investigating where that happens because I'm pulling up the gold right now, and Wiggly is 250 gold ahead of Dardoch. It's basically like a minion wave or 2 camps worth because he cleared 6. Dardoch cleared 3 plus Scuttle. So 4 camps to 6. And he still hasn't recalled yet. So you're seeing like that. I actually like the playing off a strong mid lane Syndra to go invade Krugs and try and get that double buff kill. When that doesn't work, that means Bjergsen didn't use his mid pressure for anything necessarily. And Dardoch was basically spent a bunch of time not farming to go for something. So really small stuff, only 3 minutes, 44 seconds in, but that's what we've seen so far.
Right. It's small things, but you're generally not going to have something massive to talk about in the first 3 minutes of the game unless somebody makes a really crazy play, which that TSM move had the potential to be. But CLG wisely playing around it. As soon as they saw something was up, they're like, okay, we need to be careful about this. Bjergsen's missing from mid lane. Wiggly manages to keep himself alive and safe, and everything's going just fine here for the side of CLG. No update yet as to where the pause is, what's going on. We'll see here in just a moment, hopefully.
Yeah, and let's set the stage a bit for what's going to happen later in this game, because we know in week 1, TSM was 0-2, but they had the best gold difference at 15 of all teams in the LCS. It was plus 1,900. I think a lot of that is because of how well Dardoch was doing stuff in the early game, right? He had those 2 exceptional ganks on double lift at the start of their TL game. Yeah, their first game against Immortals as well. They were able to get the bot lane going. Kabe had a pretty successful Senna game, all things considered. But around the mid game, all of their CS just got outpaced by the other team. They were either overgrouping and not finding stuff, or they weren't pressuring the map adequately as a team. So the big improvement steps for TSM kind of as they go forward is like, hey, let's find ways to successfully wield these leads in the mid game.
And talking about what TSM needs to do, I want to also look at CLG because Smoothie is the player that we heard from coming into this game, talking about what he thinks Biofrost's weaknesses and strengths are as a player and how Biofrost doesn't play for the team as much as Smoothie does. And Smoothie's someone who I'm going to be watching particularly close here this game.
I was just talking about the unfortunate ganks on double lift, and he doesn't like being.
Yeah, he's just.
Hi, Peter.
It's a cameo. There you go.
Yeah.
Easy. But with Smoothie, he was one of the ones who had a lot of unforced errors in their game earlier this week.
Yeah.
Remember when Ruin gets caught out topside, he ends up giving away a second kill for free. He's actually the pick in his own side of the jungle that results in them being able to win the game, and them ultimately losing the game, their opponents being able to win later on in the same match. So Smoothie, in particular, especially after saying you're out for TSM blood before this game, I want to see him really tighten his play up once we get into that mid and late game phase.
Yeah, and both of these teams have struggled in the mid and late game. They just struggled in different ways, right? TSM has been unable to find the correct play. CLG has been actively making the wrong play, which puts themselves in that negative position. So I'm kind of fascinated to see how this one plays out because COG has the right idea, like they should be trying to force things with these leads. They've just been so uncoordinated in doing so. The early laning phase for COG has actually been one of their stronger points, where they have been individually playing pretty well, just haven't been able to translate that at all. Wiggly with an invade.
You can see here Olaf doing what Olaf does best, walking up to the opposing jungler and saying, this is mine now, you gotta go home. And there's not a whole lot Dardoch is able to do about it. So Wiggly will steal away some of that money there. 31-25 in the jungle CS count. First Drake spawning here in 3 seconds. We may see some attention paid to that one.
Yeah.
And it does look like Wiggly is going to start it up. That's a very early first Drake.
Yeah, right at 5 minutes, but you can see where everything is set up. They have a deep control ward. They have mid lane pushed in. Remember, Bjergsen did that early roam, so he gave up mid priority. Bottom lane with Senna Kench has been pushing in as well. So really easy for Wiggly to pick that up.
We've been seeing most first Drakes go down around 6 to 7 minutes when a team wants to pursue them early, but on spawn is a whole nother level here for Counter Logic Gaming. And Wiggly will go right back into farming. As soon as the camps are up, he's able to just mow them right back down. Bjergsen and Crown, nobody really having too much action here just yet in the mid lane. And bottom side, Stixay and Smoothie are the ones with lane control right now, so you'll see them pushing up, having their opponents underneath the turret. Smoothie feeling confident walking up there, not too afraid of Biofrost and Kabe trying to force anything onto him. They've got the minion wave.
Yeah, and no fear of Dardoch right now. I believe Dardoch just killed off the control ward that was a Raptor, so they know he's transiting up to the top side. So Stixay and Smoothie are just going to try and harass as much as possible, and they're able to disengage with Tom Kench if TSM ever tries retaliation.
And speaking of the top side, look at that CS difference between Broken Blade and Ruin. Broken Blade is actually farming so much better than his opponent is on the Sylas. As Dardoch tries to contest the Krugs against Wiggly, he's falling pretty far behind in CS himself, and these are really the two biggest differences you're going to see across the map right now as the carries in the other lanes are dead.
Yeah, and there was an early flash burned in the top lane, which is possibly why Ruin is playing so conservatively. One of the big reasons COG is pushing down bottom lane is because Stixay had an early recall on Pickaxe and teleported back. Kabe now matching, which I think is interesting. Like, that's why COG was playing so aggressively. They were trying to force that TP out of Xayah with the Rift Herald spawning at 8 minutes that COG is likely going to try and go for. Getting that bot lane TP down is quite important.
It prevents a situation like what we were talking about last game where one side can just leave their AD carry bottom to do whatever because they know he can TP in. And especially when you look at TSM, they're not the ones with the Senna this time. In the last game, Turtle was still able to help because of his global ult, because of the Dawning Shadow. Xayah doesn't have that sort of a luxury. She's got to be there in person, and Kabe will have to hoof it up there if that's the play here in this game. 30 seconds until the Rift Herald spawns. Second round of buffs are coming up now. Wiggly will pass the blue off to Crown. And TSM are the ones that control over the bottom side now. Dardoch still only level 5 on the Kiana. Wiggly already level 6. So it means he's not too scared whatever he runs into here with this Olaf. This is one of your favorite points in the game. Once the Ragnarok comes online and you can just do as you please. Bottom lane, it's Stixay and Smoothie looking to go in. Kabe fires off that ultimate, manages to dodge away from the CC and keep himself alive.
So really, TSM's bot lane just in defensive mode for a while. The weirdest thing in this game, though, is just like, look at that top lane CS grow. 25 CS advantage already for Broken Blade over Ruin. And Ruin still having that TP on cooldown, plus deep control ward vision for TSM. Like, if we're talking about Rift Herald fights, having that kind of top lane priority could end up really helping TSM here. There's a good chance we'll see a fight around Rift Herald.
And especially with Broken Blade playing against an AP champion in lane, with both enemy solo laners being AP based, building Abyssal Mask and getting the Ornn upgrade to it is the most ideal thing Ornn wants to do early on. The upgrade to Abyssal Mask is absolutely incredible in terms of the stats it provides, the gold value you get from it. It's pretty far above most of the other items. And Broken Blade being able to do that and have it not only make him this massive meatball in the team fights, but in the 1v1s as well. Just look at him, man! He's destroying Ruin in the 1v1.
Woo! Another flash burn from the top lane. TSM right there didn't bother trying to fight the Rift Herald. They don't have 6 on Kiana yet. It'll be on CLG to make that Rift Herald a proactive play since none of their lanes have been able to push to turrets. CLG actually got 2 plates down bottom lane, and the expected value of a Herald is about 2.5 plates. So that's not necessarily a bad trade, especially since Blade just gets another turret up in the top lane. And look how far up he's playing.
He just does not care. Wiggly's made his way up, but a 2v2 could quickly go the way of TSM with how low Ruin is. The stolen Ornn ultimate is used. They force the flash out of Broken Blade, but considering his jungler is right next to him, he's not afraid to stick around long enough to push that wave out. Look at the gold difference, chat. 1.3 thousand this early into the game, and I guarantee you most of it's in top lane.
900 of it is in top lane. And 400 of it is actually on Bjergsen, who has built a 20 CS advantage of his own. So team solo lane so far in this game for Bjergsen and TSL has been working.
Stixay finding himself jumped on here in the bottom side, but Kinch does what Kinch does best. Keeps that AD carry safe, and I still just love the fact that Tahm Kench is a champion that has been nerfed so many times now. He is essentially just a get-out-of-jail-free card for your AD carry. But in professional play, that is so important. You're essentially willing to say, yes, I want a 5th button for my AD carry that keeps him alive, and that is what I will draft for the support role.
I got some thoughts on Kench, but there's a Drake happening right now, so we'll get back to this.
We'll discuss the Kench after. We'll discuss the Kench after, because TSM is going for that second Drake of the game. If they pick this one up for themselves, that'll tie it up at 1-1. Cloud Drake means ultimate cooldown reduction, and Dardoch will be left to secure that one, gets it for himself with a smite. Oh, this is the first game this year that I get to cast that has my favorite Drake soul. I call him the therapy dragon.
It's just so calming.
It's so peaceful. You can be tilted out of your mind. You can be 0-5 in lane. Somebody rage quit from your team, and it's still just peaceful, man.
Because of the plants or just like the color tone?
There's flowers, and there's color tones, and it's rainy. You just put on some lo-fi chill hip-hop beats to study, relax, and jungle to, you're going to feel great the whole time.
I don't disagree with you, but there's also something terrifying about the added brush. Like, sure, it's all
You
like,
only play against Rengars?
Yeah. Oh, funny story. Rengar actually has a lower win rate on Ocean Rift than he does any of the other rifts.
Because it makes the Rengar players just strictly try to do meme stuff with the brushes instead of play the game correctly?
That might be part of it. The hypothesis is that there's so many honey fruit that people are high health, and he's an assassin, so he actually needs low health people to succeed. Like the brush kind of helps, but there's enough brush anyway.
Interesting.
Didn't think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about the honey fruits, but those will be all over the rift here. We know those spawn near the buffs now, along with the river, and so much extra brush means more opportunity to hide in those, set up some sneak plays. Almost all the way around the back part of the red buffs means it's so much area to hide in. As a TP comes in top side, Stixay makes his way up there. You can see he's following up from behind, and CLG make the swap.
They're going to rift. So they want to get the second plate down before this rift. That's why they teleported up here, because they're going for first turn and a kill.
Oh, Broken Blade, this is not a fight you want to be finding yourself in. Despite the strong laning, CLG put the bodies in the right place to grab the first blood.
Yeah, and first turret after this one. So that's you're always looking for a play like that with Rift Herald, and they were able to find it. Broken Blade had been playing so aggressively and so successfully that he was going to be pushed up in that situation, and like that was just pure brute force. Broken Blade, I wasn't paying super close attention because I actually didn't think in my head that he was in danger of dying, but I don't know if he just immediately ran away or not, because CLG brute forced that first turret.
And with that turret going down, CLG quickly swing the gold back into their favor. They put a lot of it onto Stixxay as well, making sure the other members left when the turret went down so that he was able to acquire that bonus for himself. Ruin will barely manage to keep this bottom lane tier 1 alive for the side of CLG, and let's take another look at the top side play.
Yeah, so Broken Blade actually thought he was okay there, but then he's just trying to hold the turret back, and as soon as he gets hit by the Senna W, he's dead. Ruin gets exactly the right E2 timing, and then Wiggly is unable to be CC'd by the Ornhorn at the end. So works out for CLG because Broken Blade got just like a little bit of greed. In the past, I think in week 1, Broken Blade actually played with too much respect, not enough greed. But moments like that is why you sometimes can't create a top lane.
This is what early on in the split's for. You got to dial it in.
It's
dial
like
it
this
in.
infuriating top lane thing where you're pressured to get CS and stay by your turret when you're in danger of being dived. And then when the dive actually happens, you think, ah, crap. Shouldn't have done that.
I should have got away. I should have gone home.
When you're hiding behind your turret, no one's there, you go, ah, crap, I should have stayed for CS.
Well, he's staying down here in the bottom side, and he's making the right call this time because there's no dive potential from just Wiggly and Ruin. So he'll keep farming up. Still has a 30 CS lead over his opponent. Mid lane, you can see Bjergsen has the Super Soaker here on the Syndra, and this is something that we've seen pretty much all sorts of mids start to do. Is Stixxay and Smoothie looking for a fight here in the mid lane, but there's that Super Soaker! Smoothie's going home. And let's see what else happens now as Ruin fires off a stolen Ornn ulti. Not going to get much else with it, but that is 1 kill to TSM.
Yeah, at the very start of that play, Smoothie and Stixxay actually did a nice little sidestep on one of Biofrost's W's, but in doing the sidestep, Smoothie extended a little bit closer to the mid-turret, and the rest of TSM is went for him. Now, they want more.
Now the real Ornhorn is summoned, but Stixxay manages to get himself to safety before it ever makes the connect, so that means CLG are able to stave off that play and keep himself playing.
Yeah, missed engagement there. Not going to have that Ornn ultimate for the Drake fight. Invade on blue buff, though.
Crown getting a little bit of damage onto Bjergsen, but Bjergsen manages to use the Blast Cone to escape the chain in a way that even though it procs, he spins most of the route in the air from the Blast Cone, so he buffers it really well.
Yeah, Dardoch and Broken Blade have spent a lot of time together this game, threatening dives with like a nice CC chain, but they've actually gotten very few kills out of it. So in that situation, Dardoch was actually preemptively camping that bottom lane turret to shadow Broken Blade, but no one was there because Ruin had already gone top lane. So game's at an interesting inflection point right now with that Ocean Drake being up and Ruin having a teleport. COD doesn't have mid lane push. They could try and brute force Ocean contest, but it looks like they're going to do that.
CLG also has the second Rift Herald of the game. It has been summoned in the mid lane to take down the tier 1 turret. CLG wanting to trade those objectives, say, all right, you take the Drake, we'll get this. Is Shelly going to be enough along with Stixxay to take it down? Senna pretty slow at taking down objectives compared to most other AD carries because of her incredibly limited attack speed. And TSM will manage to keep that mid lane turret alive. We're 16 minutes into the game. You don't get plate money for that, so Shelly doesn't get much done.
Yeah, if you don't actually get the turret, probably not worth the time investment that was put in there by Wiggly. You would have rather have Wiggly down there posturing for Drake control because now TSM is one closer to Soul Point. Can we talk about Tahm Kench now?
Yeah, let's talk about Tahm Kench. We got a breather.
I've been waiting for this moment. So,
all right, let's hear it.
You mentioned, and this isn't Menace Flame, but it's a champion that's only been nerfed. I disagree.
Okay.
Because he was at like a 40% win rate, but he had so much like niche protection power that he was unplayable in solo, like completely unplayable. His protection power, while still powerful, has been nerfed substantially. You don't move full speed with an ally in your belly anymore. You can't flash with someone in your belly anymore. And then he's been actually buffed in other ways, like how tanky he can be, how far his ultimate can go at rank 2. That's been buffed as well for the global power. So yeah, I'm fully on the I hate Kench train, but he actually has been buffed. He's been buffed a few times.
All right, we got to make sure we're being kept honest here as TSM goes for a dive in the mid lane, and that's a nice 2-man knockup. Biofrost starts it off, but Dardoch, he's gonna make sure he tries to use the supreme display of talent. It's one dead on the side of CLG, make it two. Dardoch's doing the work, but he's taken down by Stixxay. It's a 2-for-2 trade as TSM hold their position here in the mid lane, crown back over the wall, and everybody walks away.
And Kabe was free firing in that team fight. Likely did the most damage on the team. That's the guy I'm going to be having my eyes on, whether or not he can avoid LeBlanc assassinations throughout the game, because he would be in a position to carry this one. Very back and forth fight in there, but Kabe also flashed aggressively forward again. So let's watch this fight one more time. Turret's about to fall, and LeBlanc had just shown top lane, so TSM says, hey, let's get it done. The Kiana ult into the Ornn ult, but a brief reprieve as Smoothie gets the Devour, and then just like, watch Kabe here trying to go for this extra kill, knows the Devour is down, but Stixxay does counter flash away as he plays very aggressively.
Back-to-back supreme displays of talent there as Ruin also
So confusing.
stole Dardoch. It turns the entire team fight into just absolute madness. And it's only going to get more so as the game continues forward and we see those cooldowns go down. Proto Belt completed on the Sylas for extra burst potential. I was already talking about how the GLP, or the Super Soaker, as a lot of people tend to call him, is completed for Bjergsen. We've seen this change away from the Luden's Echo that used to be so prominent. People much prefer the utility of the active on the GLP these days. It helps set up your skill shots, make it so you can guarantee the rest of your damage comes in.
And it helps self-heal a little bit too, which is one of the biggest weaknesses of the Syndra. So like, yeah, I totally agree. It's just landing one extra ability is more important than getting that Luden's proc, and that's why we're seeing a lot of these CC-focused mages go for the GLP.
TSM managed to take down their third turret of the game. That's the final one of the outer turrets of CLG. Part of the reason why TSM have this 2,500 gold lead. With CLG now putting in work on the bottom lane tier 1, TSM is investing 4 men into the top side to continue their push, looking for the tier 2. Onto the Ruin dive. Is this going to be a counter kill? Not quite. The stopwatch will just barely keep Kabe away from death's door.
Definitely got a little spooky there at the end for Kabe, but a nice proactive play by TSM right there. So this is the situation that we talked about in the early game where, hey, both of these teams have struggled to do things with leads and in general in the mid and late game. But here, TSM gets full control over the top side of the jungle. They go behind the turret to make a kill happen, and they got to try and make sure they're keeping their other waves pushed and not sacrificing too much farm for it. If you look across the board, every individual actually has more CS. I was going to point it out, but it's gone now. Watch the dive now.
Yeah, we got to replay instead.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Ultimate of the wall. He had stolen the Rakan ultimate, so it did give him that nice little bit of charm, and he landed that all-powerful E2 on Sylas, the second part of his E, which has been buffed massively in one of the recent patches. Nearly gets the kill.
If the stopwatch wasn't there, the second part of the Q would have been able to explode to finish off the rest of Kabe's health. He stopwatched right before that exploded.
Yeah.
So very clutch timing there, probably just mashing the button, hoping to escape the CC in time. Another Ornn Horn is summoned. It's gonna throw Ruin right up into the air, and Broken Blade grabs himself a kill, and it's right as Ocean is spawning. TSM now has priority for this fight and for this tier 2.
They are just destroying Ruin this game. The early laning phase, after his early flash was down, Broken Blade just crushed him. Every time he's trying to defend a turret, there's basically 2 people there, and no one on COG is there to cover for him, and Ruin doesn't know they're there. So it's just like rinse and repeat, get Ruin down, and that's what's given TSM this advantage.
And he's not on something like an Ornn, right? He's not a big old meatball. Sylas needs damage. He needs to stay relevant to the game. And when you're just falling behind at this rate, imagine if Sylas had 1,000 more gold in his pocket. There's another blasting wand when he went for that kill to take Kabe down. Does that equal a kill? Probably. And that's what you've got to keep your eyes on, is exactly how things are going to look for him in terms of the curve of the game and where he's at. Can he manage to keep up? Or if he falls too far behind, is it just curtains? Because Soul Point is now there for TSM. 4.5 minutes from now, CLG will have to either defend that or give away what many people consider the strongest Drake Soul in the game.
Yeah, it's so hard to play against the Ocean Soul. Any poke you'll get down is pretty quickly gone, not to mention just the overall power. But yeah, just I'm trying to think of like what CLG should do in this situation. Maybe they should try and make a play with Kenshin side lanes, but again, you usually need a lead before you can set up pressure to do something like that, and TSM just has so many engage tools that anytime someone on CLG goes to a side lane, they're kind of just sitting ducks for an engage.
Here we go. Speaking of engage, it's Biofrost starting it off. Any other champion's probably dead there, but Wiggly, he's got the Ragnarok. He immunes himself to the CC. He walks away, but he still has to go back to base to heal up. And with the enemy jungler driven out, TSM knows they now have control over the top side jungle of CLG to put down some vision and choke them out of this side of the map.
Yeah, they want to try and get something happening at Baron, but there are a few wards that CLG have that make them a little bit safe, and more importantly, Broken Blade is down here, but now with the TP, there's a fight.
They've got the charm onto Smoothie, looking to chain CC him, but CLG will find a pick onto Dardoch. Stixay's now alone against Broken Blade, and he's in a real bad spot. Smoothie nearly taken down there in the mid lane, 80 carry already gone. Xayah ulti not gonna find the kill just yet, but the feathers are pulled back, and Smoothie is out of there. It is a 2-kill fight there for TSM. Unfortunately for them, they do lose Dardoch, but it's still a win.
Yeah, and Broken Blade and Kabe are just getting so strong. 276 CS 24 minutes in, and Broken Blade finding solo kills as CLG tries to run through the river. You would have liked to see Dardoch stay alive. He's actually fallen pretty far behind on this Kiana, as was kind of expected into the Olaf matchup, but the rest of the team is finding success.
And when the rest of the team is finding success and you've got an Ornn there to power him up too, that is more than enough. Let's take a look at the mid lane play.
Yeah, I was watching the Ornn play, so what happened to Dardoch? He just gets...
He got charmed.
He just gets completely obliterated, but then CLG felt pretty confident after that one, realized, hey, wait a minute, our 80 carries caught in the river, and hey, Kabe and Bjergsen are still really strong, so they end up losing the fight on both ends.
At least they got the kill into Dardoch, otherwise that could have been really bad. TSM could have threatened to go for a Baron or something similar, so that keeps them alive here a little bit longer, keeping their head above water, but down 3,500 gold, a little bit more even at this point, 25 minutes into the game. Not where CLG wants to be, as TSM will retain control over Summoner's Rift and continue just trying to shove these waves out, push them in, take control of the top side jungle. When the tier 2 turrets are down everywhere, it's so easy for TSM to command control of the map.
Yeah, and they're forcing onto Baron right now. Something that just always comes to mind when I see an Ornn in the game, since I think it's like the internet's favorite thing to comment on, is Ornn items. We were talking up GLP earlier. Maybe Ludens would have been better because
you can upgrade
Broken Blade doesn't have an upgradable item right now at level 14. He's already upgraded the IE, and no one else has something that can be pressed to give free gold.
It's something you've always got to consider. What does Ornn actually carry? You got to buy something name brand. He's not upgrading some Walmart brand Super Soaker that you bought for $5. You got to have something worth upgrading.
The Ludens Echo.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
Exactly. It's high value. Why Ludens is an upgradable Ornn item and GLP is not, I don't know. I don't make the rules, but it's true.
You were on the balance team. You made the rules for a while.
No,
Why is there no Super Soaker, Jazz?
I don't know. Maybe every item should be an Ornn item. But either way, like Death Cap's an Ornn item.
All right, you got a good point. You got a good point.
Redemption's an Ornn item.
There's plenty of them, but unfortunately, they're not in the inventory of Bjergsen. I do believe you can upgrade the Banshee's Veil, so there is that.
Can you really?
I'm pretty sure you
God,
can upgrade it.
I really should know this. There's only like a few of them.
Biofrost is now finding himself in a bad spot. There's the damage, there's the kill. It's Baron to the side of TSM, but they've lost one already. Wiggly used the Ragnarok there, so he doesn't have that power here. The team fight breaks out. Dardoch gonna be locked down. Damage coming through. Crown's gonna be blown up. Counterattack comes out. Dardoch may be gone, but the supreme display of talent carries on in his name. Ruin's on the run and Kabe's on the chase. Broken Blade right behind him. And TSM find themselves an even fight, but they're wearing purple on the 3 members still alive.
Yeah, and the 3 members still alive have a lot of gold. CLG would hope to be able to get this Ocean Drake because they have a Smiter alive, but he doesn't have very much health. So Kabe, as long as he doesn't get hit by E2 in one shot, seems like they'll have this Ocean Soul in the bag.
That Q2 from Sylas looks like it did about as much damage as a drop auto attack. This is not where the Sylas wants to be. When I was talking about power breakpoints earlier, when I was talking about the curve of the game, he is most certainly behind it. Let's take another look at the fight.
Yeah, Biofrost, way too far ahead of the play. I think in his head he was saying, I'm just going to make sure they're not there for a steal because we really only care about the Baron. Probably didn't think he would die. He did. In terms of the fight, though, unless someone gets onto Kabe, it's not going to be good for CLG. Crown didn't do it. Smoothie didn't do it. Ruin didn't do it. And the rest of them died.
Well, by the look of this replay, nobody did it, and that's exactly why TSM are where they are right now. But the kick in the front door of the CLG base, they got the 6,000 gold lead to do it with. Is this the end of the game? Can TSM close it out before 30 minutes? 5 men strong, pushing into bottom lane, inhibitor turret down, inhibitor under pressure. CLG continuing to try to defend. Stixay's putting the auto attack into Broken Blade, but he's just so damn tanky. Stone Plate now completed too, means once he does go in, it's so much extra HP.
Yeah, they are so incredibly powerful at this moment. Broken Blade, that untouchable tank. They got 2 Baron cannons, so they're just kind of standing here, daring CLG to fight them as the cannons kill that turret.
Born ulti ready for the counter engage as well on the side of TSM. Ocean Soul healing everybody up. This is a siege machine for Team Solo mid. Unstoppable on Broken Blade means he's not going to get caught out by much of anything there. Still continues to retreat. TSM falling back as a unit. Crown nearly blown up by Kabe's auto attacks. The Molten Edge, the Essence Reaver. He's got 4 crit items, 100% crit chance on this Xayah. He has scaled.
That's a big Xayah right there. I think TSM's going to be able to at least break the second inhib here at the rest of their Baron, and knowing there's a Nexus turret down, not shocked if they win on this push.
2,000 gold for the Baron power play. Biofrost looking for an opportunity to engage here. The fight's going to be breaking out, and Crown is already gone. Ruin looking to go into the back line. He's going to be having to go into stasis now, taken out. Wiggly going on a killing spree, taking down Dardoch. But man, it is just not even fair. TSM are so far ahead, and CLG will try to hold inhibitor number 2. Bjergsen's on the run away from Wiggly, but their damage just isn't available. CLG, they kite back, they try to survive, but Kabe is a war machine on this Xayah. Stixay and Smoothie hightail it back into the fountain, but TSM, they found the fight, they found the inhib, they're on to the Nexus turret. Biofrost just looking for more, pad the stats, insult to injury. TSM will put yet another win in the column against CLG.
Just adding to the history there for TSM, and after a disastrous week 1 at 0-2, being able to 2-0 in week 2 and find themselves at 2-2 has got to feel pretty good.
And to fix it up and have this game end around that 30-minute mark. 30 minutes and 3 seconds. I said, could they end it before 30 minutes? Technically they didn't, but it's right on the dot. And that means they weren't goofing around. It's not like they didn't know what to do once they had the Baron. They got leads and they pushed them, and those are the things we wanted to see them fix.
Absolutely. And for CLG, it's going to continue to be that work in progress. The only winless team still in the LCS. That is not what they were hoping after actually finishing 3rd place last year in the Summer Split.
They had a pretty miraculous comeback over the course of Summer Split because they've been a team that, like I said, it had been almost 3 years before last year since they had beaten TSM. These two teams that were at the top back in the inception of the LCS, TSM sort of rose to greatness and stayed there for so long, and CLG just had to fight their way through the trenches trying to figure it out. And now, TSM, once again, starting to take shape. The first couple of weeks can always be rough on any team, just getting things to work together. Like you said, Bjergsen has been sick as well, but this week was much better for them. CLG, still so many of these puzzle pieces to try to work around and fit into the right place.
Yeah, so many overreactions after week 1, and then you just try and react just as quickly in week 2 to try and rehandle things. Now that we are concluded, just looking at like the overall landscape, obviously Cloud9's feeling great.
Yeah.
Right? They're winning.
They literally tweeted after last game, thank you very much, Dignitas. We're now undisputed number 1. So
yeah, very true. But TSM here, preseason, people were looking at them as a top 3, right? Mm-hmm. After the 0-2 start, there was big questions of like, is it completely time to panic? The fact that they were, the clutch smite steal they had in that EG game to avoid going winless into this one, but then to also get that win. You're not going to remember necessarily exactly how you got here, but being at 2-2 with a 2-0 week means they can build on this week going forward.
It builds that momentum. We'll see how they carry it into week 3, but for now and for more on the win, Pastry is standing by with an interview. Take it away.
Thank you, Flowers. I am here with Biofrost, TSM support. 0-2 to start things off, but now riding the ship at 2-2. Now that you're at the end of week 2, Bio, does it, how does it feel?
I think our game yesterday didn't go as well as we wanted it to, but today felt a lot better. We kind of executed on our plan, and overall, it just was a big improvement from last week. Still not where we want to be, but it's a start.
Was there anything in particular that happened between week 1 and week 2 that kind of changed it for your team?
Yeah, I think after the first week, we just had a really bad early game, and it's partly because we just haven't been focused on. We had a really good early game, but a really bad mid game, and we just haven't been focused on mid game. But this week, we made a big conscious effort to try to fix a lot of the stage issues that we had, and I think we fixed a couple of them. We still have some, but yeah.
And then obviously, kind of a set of new players playing with each other, and you returning to the team. What has that been like for you, kind of coming back to TSM?
It's always nice to see familiar faces and catch up. I always liked TSM because there was my first team and we always did really well. So, I like CLG too, but TSM is a little bit better. Sorry.
Didn't like him enough today, I guess. Congratulations on the victory versus CLG. We're going to throw it back to the desk for the Bud Light breakdown.
Thank you, Pastry. Welcome back to the desk for the Bud Light Breakdown, where we're going to wrap up the week and we'll be awarding one of those dope figurines on over for our player of the week, and then head on over to the Bud Light League Lounge for twitch.tv/Bud Light. But first things first, we got to take a look at how everything has stacked up after our weekend of play here today. Standings on the screen right there for you. Cloud9 still remaining undefeated at the top, trickling all the way on down to Counterlogic Gaming that we just unfortunately witnessed pick up their next loss.
Most importantly, as Prawley was pointing out off camera, it's symmetrical. That's all that matters.
It's so pretty.
It makes it easy to talk about. This is the best team. These two are tied for the next best top 3, and then you have the middle pack. It just makes it so easy to talk about.
It's so wonderful, so beautiful. Gotta love those numbers matching up on the screen. But maybe for some of those teams that are in the middle of the standings, are there any in particular that stand out to you as not expecting to be there?
I expect TSM to keep rising. I think they had a rough week 1, but they're just too good to stay in that kind of middle pack.
And this game felt a bit better too, so I just expect it to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as far as CLG being in the bottom, I know the fans might not be the happiest about that. But let's go ahead and get a reminder of how the predictions played out, because they aren't the only ones to lose on this regard. Here on the desk, everybody going the way of Dignitas, and that wasn't the case.
But who would ever in their right minds predict FlyQuest to win? They're Wild Turtle and PoE are just on the other side of the
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, maybe we'll have to let the audience in.
Trying to get a reaction out of them. They just stared at us.
It's okay, Mark just decided to talk louder for no apparent reason.
I just yell when I'm embarrassed. I didn't predict wrong.
But with everything that is coming in the next week, before we touch on that schedule, I just want to get any last thoughts from you on what we witnessed here today.
I just like to pace the game. The fact that I was talking about TSM's pace being super slow, 46-minute game average, the fact that they closed it out in 30 with perfect objective control almost, it was all great.
Yeah, I think faster plays and more plays, I think is just good sign for TSM.
Well, this is the end of week number 2. LCS returns on Saturday with Evil Geniuses versus Counterlogic Gaming to kick things off, with 2 more matches before we have Cloud9 versus FlyQuest.
There's some big games here. I think TSM versus Dig is important for me because seeing FlyQuest bounce back, it's pretty obvious that their loss to Team Liquid was a lot on just individual misplays like the Viper play in the top lane, and that they're actually a pretty solid team. Now we get to see TSM, they're improving. Is Dignitas as good as we initially thought? It's just another good check.
Yeah, that's a good thermometer for sure to see where both teams are going, if one's going up or down, or if it's just Dignitas just had unlucky loss today.
I think FlyQuest versus C9 is the other one. And for the same reason, the thermometer, like you were saying, because we saw that one really bad loss, but you could just look at a couple individual misplays. The rest of FlyQuest has looked really great in their team wins.
Yeah, the loss that we saw from them being so drastically different from the win. So in the C9 versus FlyQuest matchup, even though they're slightly different in the standings, do you think that we're in for a hell of a treat?
I don't know what else to say. My predictions aren't great, so I wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah. I think there are a couple important matchups to watch, especially Ignar has been great. Even on the Alistar, he got super target banned, still had a great performance on it, and so I want to see how he'll match up against Vulcan and Sven, who right now are looking like the best bot lane in the league.
Well, before we hand things off over to the Bud Light League Lounge, we do have to award the MasterCard Player of the Week, which is going to Cloud9 Sven. I know Prolly's clapping over here on the desk. Mark, is this a surprise to you?
No, he's deathless. He's getting hype threads on Reddit. We just follow them, you know, so it was pretty obvious he was going to win this award this week. A couple other people, too. You know, had our eye on Johnson, we had our eye on Broken Blade. Other people who could potentially step up, but it was just obvious, you know, being 4-0, being deathless, having a great performance so far in Senna, he definitely deserves this.
Yeah, he's playing the weak champion Senna. It's not a very good AD carry, so
yeah,
him doing so well means a lot.
What pose do you think he's going to choose?
I don't
That's
know.
the important
I
thing.
heard that they did a lot of the poses already, so you can't, like, react to other people's poses. Because I would definitely try and one-up someone else.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But we're going to eventually see what that pose is. So congratulations again to Sven on that. But now for myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thanks for tuning in, watching, and we will see you over in the Bud Light channel to wrap up this week.